Hello guys, welcome to Fiction Quest. So in this video, we will see, what if Naruto got power of the king of the pirates and get married with Nami and Robin? If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1. The maelstrom arrives. The sky tore open like a wound. Lightning without thunder crackled across suddenly darkened heavens, fracturing reality itself as the dimensional rift expanded. Marine officers scattered across the harbor docks, weapons raised toward the impossible anomaly swirling 50 feet above Logatown's central plaza. Vice Admiral Smoker barked orders, his jeet extended toward the disturbance as civilians fled in terror. Secure the perimeter. No one enters or leaves. Smoker's voice carried through the chaos as his body partially dissolved into billowing white smoke. Whatever's coming through, we contain it here. The rift pulsed, expanded, then contracted violently, spitting forth a single figure before sealing itself with a thunderclap that shattered windows throughout the district. The man plummeted toward the cobblestones, somehow twisting midair to land in a three-point stance that cracked the pavement beneath him. Spiky blonde hair, whisker marks on tanned cheeks, a torn and bloodied orange and black jacket, eyes that shifted from cerulean blue to yellow with horizontal bar pupils, then back again as he straightened to his full height. Uzumaki Naruto stood, disoriented but alert, surrounded by armed marines in a world he didn't recognize. Identify yourself and surrender immediately, Smoker commanded, circling closer as his subordinates formed a perimeter, rifles aimed at the intruder. Naruto's gaze sharpened, battlefield instincts kicking in as he assessed his surroundings. This wasn't the Valley of the End where he'd been fighting. The Archite looked nothing like any village he knew. And these uniformed soldiers, they weren't shinobi. Where am I? Naruto asked, voice steady despite the blood trickling down his temple. And who exactly would I be surrendering to? Smoker's expression darkened. Playing dumb won't help you. No one falls out of the sky in Logatown without the world government taking notice. Last chance before I drag you to impel down myself. Naruto's posture shifted imperceptibly. The mention of world government meant nothing to him, but the threat was clear enough. Surrendering to unknown forces had never been his style. Sorry, he said with a slight smile that didn't reach his eyes. But I've got too many people waiting for me to let myself get dragged anywhere today. Smoker lunged forward, his arm transforming into a coiling mass of smoke. White blow. The attack should have connected, would have connected with anyone else. But Naruto simply wasn't there anymore. He'd moved faster than any observer could track, reappearing behind the Marine Vice Admiral. That's an interesting technique, Naruto observed calmly. Some kind of elemental transformation. Doesn't feel like chakra though. Smoker spun, genuine surprise flashing across his face. Devil fruit user. Never heard of it, Naruto replied, forming a familiar cross-shaped hand seal. But let me show you something from where I come from. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Smoke erupted around Naruto, but unlike Smoker's power, this dissipated to reveal 20 identical copies of the blonde stranger, each solid, each moving independently. Fire! Came the order, and Marines discharged their rifles in unison. Bullets flew, and passed harmlessly through the shadow clones as they dispersed. 3 popped into smoke. The rest engaged the Marines with hand-to-hand combat, moving with a fluid grace that spoke of years of training. No wasted movements, no hesitation. Naruto himself focused on Smoker, who stared with narrowed eyes. Intangible. ITY against bullets but not against my smoke. What kind of ability? The Vice Admiral didn't finish as he launched forward again, jeet extended to strike. This time Naruto didn't dodge. He caught the weapon with one hand. The impact creating a small shockwave as an aura of orange energy briefly flickered around him. I don't want to fight you, Naruto stated firmly. I just need to figure out where I am and how to get back. Criminals don't get to negotiate, Smoker growled, pushing harder. Naruto sighed. I'm not a criminal, but I am in a hurry. His free hand began to rotate, palm upward, as swirling blue energy condensed into a sphere. Rasengan, he murmured, almost apologetically, before driving the spiraling orb into the ground between them. The resulting explosion rocked the plaza, sending cobblestones and debris flying outward as a cloud of dust enveloped the area, By the time Smoker regained his bearings and used his powers to clear the air, Naruto had vanished. 3 blocks away, a shadow passed over rooftops. Moving away from the commotion with practiced stealth, Naruto's mind raced as fast as his feet. The last thing he remembered was confronting a member of the Otsutsuki clan, a battle that had escalated until the enemy attempted some kind of space-time technique. There had been a pull, resistance from Kurama, then, here. Wherever, here, was. He paused atop a bell tower, crouching to survey the unfamiliar port city. Ships with massive sails crowded the harbor. People dressed in styles he'd never seen bustled through markets. And those soldiers, their weapons weren't standard shinobi gear. Different dimension, different world entirely. He muttered to himself. Kurama, any ideas? The familiar presence of the 9 tails stirred within him, but something felt off. Like the connection was altered, overlaid with another energy entirely. Something's wrong, Kit, the fox's voice rumbled, weaker than usual. This place, it's affecting me. There's another power mixing with my chakra. Naruto closed his eyes, entering his mindscape to find Kurama looking distinctly uncomfortable, orange fur occasionally rippling with patterns of red and gold that hadn't been there before. What's happening to you? Naruto approached the massive fox with concern. This world has its own power system. It's resonating with me. Changing things. Kurama growled. Be careful using my chakra until we understand more. Naruto nodded, pulling back to external awareness just as his instincts screamed danger. He leapt sideways as a metal staff whipped through the space his head had occupied a split second earlier. Most thieves know better than to admire the view before they've actually escaped, came a feminine voice, crisp with irritation. Naruto turned to face a woman with bright orange hair, brown eyes blazing with determination as she twirled her sectioned staff expertly. She wore fitted black pants and a blue and white striped top that left her shoulders bare. A strange compass-like device strapped to her wrist. I'm not a thief, Naruto responded automatically. The woman scoffed. Right, and I suppose you're just another tourist admi. Ring Logatown from the rooftops while Marines tear apart the streets looking for you. Actually, yes to the first part. Naruto raised his hands in a placating gesture. I'm not from around here. No kidding. Her eyes narrowed as she took in his distinctive appearance. Orange jumpsuit, weird headband, and whisker tattoos. You're either the worst spy I've ever seen or you're genuinely lost. A commotion from below interrupted their standoff. Marines were conducting door-to-door searches, methodically working their way through the district. Look, the woman said, lowering her staff slightly. I don't care who you are. But you've got the worst timing. I've been planning this job for weeks, and now the whole town's on lockdown because of you. Naruto blinked. Job. So you're the thief. A dangerous smile crossed her face. I prefer acquisition specialist. And right now, I need to complete my acquisition and get off this island before those Marines find what I took from the governor's mansion. Naruto processed this information quickly. So you're not with them. That's good, I guess. Depends on your perspective. She glanced toward the harbor. My escape route's cut off with the increased security. But you, she assessed him with new interest. You got away from Smoker. That's not easy. I try not to hurt people when I don't have to, Naruto said simply. Something flashed in her eyes, recognition. Perhaps, or memory. For a brief moment, her guarded expression softened. I'm Nami, she offered suddenly. And I might have a proposition for you, mystery man. Help me get off this island with my prize. And I'll give you information that might explain how you got here. Naruto's eyebrows rose. You know something about dimensional travel. Nami's laugh was quick and sharp. So that's what happened. Interesting. No, but I know someone who might understand it. She extended her hand. Do we have a deal? Naruto hesitated only briefly before clasping her hand. Naruto. Uzumaki Naruto. All right, Naruto. Nami nodded toward the eastern side of town. First, we need to retrieve my package from its hiding spot. Then we steal a boat. Her smile turned wicked. Ho, do you feel about creating a distraction? The warehouse district smelled of salt, fish, and tar. Naruto followed Nami through a maze of alleys, observing how she moved with practiced ease through the shadows. Despite her civilian appearance, she navigated like a seasoned shinobi, always aware, never exposing herself unnecessarily. So, Naruto ventured as they paused behind stacked crates, "You're not a ninja. But you move like one." Nami gave him an odd look. "Ninja? No, I was a pirate, once." "A pirate?" Naruto couldn't hide his surprise. "Like ships and buried treasure?" "Sometimes." Her expression grew distant. "Mostly it was about freedom. Going wherever the sea took us." She shook herself, pointing toward a nondescript storage shed. "My package is in there. Cover me." As Nami slipped toward the shed, Naruto extended his senses. Since arriving in this world, he'd noticed changes in his perception, a new dimension to his abilities that felt like an extension of his sage mode. He could somehow hear intentions, feel presences in a way that transcended his normal sensory capabilities. "Someone's coming," he warned softly. "Two people, from the north." Nami froze, then glanced back at him with newfound respect. "How do you? Never mind. Can you handle them?" Quietly, Naruto nodded, forming a single shadow clone that transformed with a puff of smoke into a perfect replica of a dockworker. The clone sauntered out into the open, deliberately making noise and drawing the attention of the approaching patrol. As the Marine scouts changed course to investigate, Naruto himself circled behind them. Two quick, precisely delivered chops to the neck, and both Marines collapsed unconscious. Naruto dragged them into the shadow of a warehouse, removing nothing but taking note of their weapons, standard-issue rifles and curved swords that resembled neither katana nor chikudo. By the time he returned, Nami had emerged from the shed clutching a cylindrical case about the size of his forearm. "What exactly did you steal?" Naruto asked, eyeing the container. "Information." Nami patted the case. "The governor of Logatown has been collecting ancient artifacts and documents, and selling coordinates to certain New World islands to the highest bidders." "New World?" Nami paused, studying him carefully. "You really aren't from around here, are you?" "The New World is the second half of the Grand Line, the most dangerous sea in the world." She shook her head in disbelief. "Where exactly did you come from?" "Konohagakure, the village hidden in the leaves." Naruto glanced skyward, as if he might see his home through the clouds. "It's one of the 5 great shinobi nations, but I'm guessing none of that means anything to you." "Not a thing," Nami confirmed. "But it supports my theory that you came through some kind of dimensional rift. I've seen stranger things on the Grand Line." A distant whistle interrupted their conversation, followed by answering calls that indicated the patrol's absence had been noticed. "We need to move," Nami said urgently. "The harbor's too heavily guarded now. We'll have to try the eastern cove where the smugglers dock." They moved quickly through back streets, Nami leading with confident precision while Naruto kept his senses extended for pursuers. The town gradually gave way to less populated areas, cliffs overlooking the sea coming into view as they approached the island's eastern edge. There, Nami pointed to a narrow path descending toward a hidden cove. "There should be a few fishing boats we can." She stopped abruptly as a figure stepped out from behind a boulder. Blocking their path, a young woman with magenta hair and a voracious appetite, currently devouring what appeared to be an entire roast chicken. "Took you long enough," the newcomer mumbled between bites. "Been waiting forever." Nami tensed. "Jewelry Bonnie, what are you doing here?" "Same as you," Bonnie replied, tossing the stripped bone aside and wiping her hands on her striped clothes. "Looking for a way off this island before it's completely locked down." Her eyes, sharp despite her casual demeanor, fixed on Naruto. "This the guy who fell from the sky? Doesn't look like much." Naruto felt a strange energy emanating from the woman, not hostile, but dangerous nonetheless. "Friend of yours?" he asked Nami quietly. "Rival, at best," Nami answered. "She's a pirate captain, and a supernova." Bonnie laughed. "Former supernova. Times change." She circled Naruto appraising Ly. "So what's your deal, Blondie? Devil fruit, ancient weapon, or something else entirely?" "I told you, he's from another dimension," Nami interjected. "And we don't have time for 20 questions. Marines are right behind us." "Actually," Bonnie drawled, "they're right behind me too. And they've already secured all the boats in this cove." Naruto's enhanced senses confirmed her statement. He could detect multiple presences concealed among the rocks below. "It's a trap," he stated calmly. "Obviously." Bonnie agreed with a casual shrug. Question is, what are we going to do about it? I personally vote for the mystery man showing us what he's capable of. Naruto exchanged glances with Nami, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. All right, he said, rolling his shoulders. But we do this my way. No unnecessary casualties. Bonnie snorted. Boy Scout. Huh, fine by me, as long as we get off this rock. Naruto closed his eyes briefly, gathering natural energy to enter Sage mode. As the orange pigmentation formed around his eyes, he felt the strange new power within him surge in response, not fighting his chakra, but harmonizing with it, amplifying it in unexpected ways. When he opened his eyes, both women took involuntary steps back. His irises had turned golden, horizontal bars cutting across them, while an ethereal pattern of red-gold energy flickered across his skin like luminescent tattoos. What the hell kind of power is that? Bonnie whispered. Naruto didn't answer. Instead, he placed his hands together, focusing his expanded senses downward to pinpoint each marine's location. 27 in total, arranged in a standard ambush formation with heavy coverage of the narrow path and beach. I'll clear the path, he said simply. Nami, identify which boat we should take. Bonnie, try to keep up. Before either woman could respond, Naruto leapt from the cliff, dropping 50 feet to land with barely a sound on an outcropping just above the first group of marines. 3 shadow clones materialized beside him, each moving in different directions as the original Naruto descended further. The first marine never saw what hit him, just a flash of orange and a gentle pressure on a nerve cluster that sent him into unconsciousness. The second managed to part. Ally raise his rifle before a clone relieved him of it, along with his consciousness. The third actually fired a shot, the report echoing off the cliff walls before a Rasengan obliterated his weapon without harming the man behind it. Alarm spread through the marine ranks as they realized their ambush had been discovered. Orders were shouted, positions shifted, and a coordinated response began to form, until Naruto fully unleashed his new hybrid abilities. Fuden. Rasenshuriken, he called, forming the familiar technique but with a new twist. The shuriken-shaped wind-release technique now carry traces of the strange red-gold energy, expanding its range and altering its properties. Instead of launching it, Naruto slammed the technique into the ground between the largest concentration of marines. Rather than exploding with its usual destructive force, it erupted into a swirling vortex that lifted men off their feet, spinning them helplessly in the air before depositing them, dizzy but unharmed, on the far side of the cove. That's not wind manipulation, Nami gasped as she and Bonnie made their way down the path cleared by Naruto's clones. That's air itself responding to him, like a localized climate change. Bonnie's eyes narrowed with interest. Weather manipulation without a devil fruit? Impossible. Clearly not, Nami countered, pointing to where Naruto now stood on the water's surface, literally standing on water as easily as solid ground. A Marine lieutenant rallied his remaining forces, ordering them to surround the intruder. Rifles raised in unison. Last warning, the officer shouted. Surrender now or we open fire. Naruto's response was to close his eyes. When he opened them again, a wave of invisible force rolled outward from his body, not physical, but something else. The Marines nearest to him simply collapsed, foam bubbling from their mouths, while others staggered back, dropping weapons as their eyes rolled back. Conqueror's Haki, Bonnie breathed, genuine shock in her voice. But different somehow, more refined. Nami was already moving toward the sleekest fishing vessel, a 20-foot sloop with a triangular sail and streamlined hull. This one, it's built for speed. The remaining Marines gathered themselves for a final stand as Naruto turned toward them. His expression was not angry or triumphant, simply resolute. I don't want to hurt any of you, he called clearly. But I am leaving this island. A brave few raised their weapons again. Naruto sighed, then moved, faster than human eyes could track. When he stopped, each Marine found themselves disarmed. Weapons neatly piled on the sand 30 feet away. How? The lieutenant stammered. Naruto smiled slightly. Where I come from, I'm pretty fast. Bonnie had reached the boat and was already preparing it for launch. Moving with the practiced efficiency of someone born to the sea. Nami joined her, stowing her cylindrical case securely below decks before taking position at the rudder. Anytime now, Dimension Hopper. Bonnie called impatiently. Naruto created a final shadow clone to stay behind and ensure the Marines didn't recover too quickly, then jogged across the water's surface to leap nimbly aboard the vessel. Several Marines openly gaped at the display. "You know," Nami commented as she expertly navigated the sloop away from shore, "I've seen devil fruit powers, haki, and even ancient weapons. But I've never seen anyone do half the things you just did." Naruto shrugged, watching the island recede. "To be fair, I've never stood on a boat before, so I guess we're even." Both women stared at him in disbelief. "You've never," Bonnie started, then burst into laughter. "Oh, this is going to be interesting." 3 hours into their journey, with Logatown a distant memory on the horizon, Nami finally called Naruto to the bow of the ship. The weather had shifted dramatically as they sailed, clear skies giving way to unpredictable squalls that seemed to appear and disappear with unnatural suddenness. "Welcome to the Grand Line," Nami explained, gesturing to the chaotic weather patterns surrounding them. "The most unpredictable sea in the world, where normal navigation is impossible and regular compasses are useless." Naruto watched in fascination as a patch of sea to their starboard side experienced snowfall while their vessel sailed through sunshine. "How do you know where you're going?" he asked. Nami tapped the device on her wrist. "Log pose. It doesn't point north, it points to islands by following their unique magnetic signatures." Her expression softened with pride. "I'm the best navigator who's ever sailed these waters. I can get us anywhere." "Modest, too," Bonnie called from where she was devouring their limited food supplies. She'd explained her perpetual hunger as a side effect of her devil fruit powers, though she'd been deliberately vague about what those powers actually were. Nami ignored the jibe, focusing on Naruto. "It's time for some answers. What exactly happened before you arrived here?" Naruto leaned against the railing, gathering his thoughts. "I was fighting a member of the Otsutsuki clan, beings from another dimension who harvest chakra from worlds. This one had abilities I'd never encountered before. He could manipulate space-time itself." He described the battle's climax, how his enemy had attempted to banish him to another dimension, and how Kurama's chakra had interfered with the technique. "I think we ended up merging dimensions somehow, instead of me simply being transported to his target dimension," Naruto concluded. "Because this world feels both familiar and completely foreign at the same time. And Kurama, the nine-tailed fox sealed inside me, says something about this world as changing his chakra." Nine-tailed fox. Bonnie had stopped eating, her full attention on Naruto. "You have a demon sealed inside you." "Not exactly a demon," Naruto corrected. "A being of pure chakra, energy in my world. We're partners now." Nami had gone very still. "Can you hear the voice of things that shouldn't speak?" The question was oddly specific, and Naruto tilted his head curiously. "What do you mean?" Instead of answering, Nami retrieved the cylindrical case from below decks. "This is what I stole from the governor," she explained, carefully opening the container to reveal an oddly shaped stone tablet about the size of a large book. Strange symbols covered its surface, symbols that seemed to shift and move as Naruto looked at them. "This is a fragment of a poneglyph, ancient stones that contain the true history of our world." Nami continued. "Only one person I know can read them. At least, only one person could." "Nico Robin," Bonnie supplied, watching Naruto's reaction carefully. Naruto reached toward the stone fragment, drawn by an inexplicable pull. As his fingers brushed its surface, the symbols suddenly flared with golden light. A voice, neither male nor female, neither old nor young, echoed in his mind. Underscore, "The one who brings the dawn shall unite the scattered crowns." Underscore, he jerked his hand back, startled. "It spoke to me." Both women exchanged meaningful glances. "That's impossible," Nami whispered. "Only the three-eyed tribe is supposed to hear the voice of all things, other than the Pirate King," Bonnie finished. "Monkey D. Luffy could hear it too." Near the end, Naruto looked between them, confusion evident. "Pirate King." Nami's expression grew distant, a mixture of pride and old pain. "My captain. The man who became the freest person in the world by finding the One Piece and uncovering the truth of the Void Century." Her voice dropped. "He was executed by the world government 5 years ago. They tried to suppress everything he discovered," Bonnie added, unusually solemn. But you can't kill an idea. The Revolutionary Army grew stronger. Pirates became bolder. And something strange started happening around the world. The power of the Pirate King didn't disappear. Nami continued. It scattered. Fragments of abilities, knowledge, and haki appearing in unexpected places and people. She fixed Naruto with an intense stare. People who fell out of the sky with powers that shouldn't exist together. Naruto felt Kurama stir within him. That explains the changes, Kit. This Pirate King's power, it's responding to your chakra, to me. We're absorbing it somehow. I think, Naruto said slowly, that when I was thrown between dimensions, something about my chakra resonated with this scattered power. It's combining with my own abilities. Bonnie snapped her fingers. That's why your conqueror's haki felt different. It's not pure haki. It's haki filtered through whatever energy system you use. And it's why you can hear the poneglyph, Nami added. You've somehow inherited a fragment of the voice of all things. Naruto considered this information carefully. If this world's power was merging with his own, it might explain He's strange additions to his sensory abilities and the modifications to his techniques. So this Pirate King, what exactly was he the king of? He asked. Nami's laugh held genuine warmth. Absolutely nothing. That was the point. The Pirate King isn't a ruler, he's the person with the most freedom in the world. The one who found the greatest treasure and learned the forbidden history. Luffy never wanted to rule anything. She continued, a fond smile playing across her lips. He just wanted adventure and to protect his friends. The title came with the achievement, not the other way around. So, nothing about that resonated deeply with Naruto. A title earned through deeds rather than birthright or conquest. A king whose kingdom was freedom itself. It sounded remarkably like his own dream of becoming Hokage, not for power, but to protect everyone precious to him. I think I would have liked him, Naruto said quietly. You're a lot like him, Nami observed, studying him thoughtfully. The same ridiculous confidence. The same refusal to hurt people unnecessarily. Even that weird ability to make allies out of enemies. Bonnie snorted. I'm not an ally. I'm an interested party. Yet here you are, helping us. Nami pointed out with a smirk. Before Bonnie could retort, Naruto raised a hand for silence. His enhanced senses had detected something approaching, fast. We've got company, he warned. Something big, moving beneath us. The sea around their small vessel began to churn, frothy white peaks forming as something massive displaced water below. Both women tensed, Nami reaching for her staff while Bonnie assumed a fighting stance. Sea King, Nami asked tersely. Worse, Bonnie replied, pointing to a periscope that had emerged 50 yards to port. Navy submarine. The sleek conning tower of a military submarine broke the surface moments later, water cascading from its armored hull as deck guns swiveled toward their significantly smaller vessel. How did they find us so quickly? Nami hissed, frantically adjusting their course. They didn't need to find us, Bonnie said grimly. They were waiting. This was a calculated interception. A voice boomed across the wait. From the submarine's external speakers. Attention unauthorized vessel. You are transporting a person of interest to the world government. Heave to and prepare to be boarded. Naruto stepped to the bow, placing himself between the submarine and his companions. Any suggestions? He asked quietly. We can't outrun a submarine, Nami admitted. And if they have a Vivre card keyed to any of us, they can track us anywhere. Then we don't run, Naruto decided. I'll handle this. Before either woman could object, Naruto formed a familiar hand seal. Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. The sea around our vessel erupted with hundreds of shadow clones, each standing on the water's surface in defiance of natural law. The submarine's gun crews hesitated, clearly unprepared for the sight of an army materializing from nowhere. I need a distraction, the real Naruto told Nami. Something to cover my approach. Understanding dawned in Nami's eyes. She reached into a pouch at her hip, withdrawing ends of a blue staff that she quickly assembled. Klima tact, she announced, twirling the weapon with practiced ease. Let me show you why they called me the Weather Witch. With precise movements, he manipulated the staff to release bubbles into the air, bubbles that began to form into clouds directly above the submarine. Within seconds, an unnatural thundercloud had formed, crackling with electricity. Thunderbolt tempo. Lightning struck the submarine's conning tower with pinpoint accuracy, temporarily disabling its external communications and creating a brilliant flash that momentarily blinded its crew. Simultaneously, Bonnie made her move. "Don't think I'm letting you have all the fun," she called, before leaping impossibly high into the air. As she descended toward the submarine's deck, her body transformed, shrinking, aging backward until a child-sized version of herself landed among the startled sailors. "What the?" One sailor reached for the apparent child, only to find himself facing a woman in her 80s who moved with the speed and precision of a master martial artist. Bonnie shifted between ages with fluid ease, becoming impossible to predict or counter as she cleared the deck. Naruto seized the opportunity, flash stepping across the water while his clones created chaos, bombarding the submarine from all sides with low-powered Rasengans designed to disable rather than destroy. He reached the vessel's hull, adhering to its surface with chakra before making his way to the conning tower. Inside, naval officers scrambled to respond to the unprecedented attack. The submarine's captain, a severe woman with short-cropped hair and a heavily decorated uniform, barked orders from the command center. "All hands to battle stations. Deploy the sea stone nets. Where is Vice Admiral?" She never finished her sentence as Naruto phased through the metal hull, appearing directly in the command center. Officers reached for weapons, but froze when Naruto released a controlled burst of Conqueror's Haki. Tinged with Kurama's chakra, "I don't want to fight," he stated clearly. "But I need information." The captain, though visibly struggling against the pressure of his Haki, remained standing. "We have standing orders regarding you." Naruto raised an eyebrow. "Regarding me specifically? How is that possible when I just arrived in this world today?" "Not you," the captain managed, reaching for a folder on her command console. With trembling hands, she opened it to reveal a series of photographs and documents. "This power signature. We've been tracking it for months." Naruto's eyes widened as he examined the contents. The photographs showed strange energy phenomena across different islands, whirlpools that spiraled in impossible patterns, weather systems that formed perfect geometric shapes. And most tellingly, a red-gold aura surrounding certain individuals briefly before disappearing. "The scattered crown," he murmured, recalling the poneglyph's words. "The fragmented power of the Pirate King," the captain confirmed, her voice steadying as Naruto's Haki pressure eased. "It's been manifesting worldwide since his execution. The world government believes it's seeking a new vessel, a successor." Naruto absorbed this information with growing understanding. And now it's found one. Through a dimensional rift, no less. A convergence of powers that should never have met. The captain agreed. The world government fears what this could mean. Enough to send an entire fleet to contain it. As if on cue, a warning alarm sounded throughout the submarine. Multiple vessels detected approaching from the southwest. Configuration matches Navy battle group. The captain's expression was grim but resigned. "You have approximately 30 minutes before we surrounded by 5 battleships and twice as many destroyers. Fleet Admiral Akainu himself is commanding this operation." Naruto recognized a genuine warning when he heard one. With a nod of acknowledgement to the captain, he phased back through the hull, rejoining Nami and Bonnie who had returned to their sloop. "We need to move," he informed them tersely. "Major naval force incoming." Bonnie, back in her adult form, cursed colorfully. "Akainu doesn't deploy personally unless the stakes are world-changing." "They are," Naruto confirmed, quickly relaying what he'd learned about the scattered power of the Pirate King and the world government's fears. Nami's expression hardened with determination. "If they're this worried, we're definitely on the right track." She consulted her log pose. "We need to reach Water 7. I have contacts there who can help us disappear, and it's on the way to where Robin was last seen." "The scholar who can read these stones," Naruto clarified, glancing at the poneglyph fragment now secured back in its case. "More than that," Nami replied. "If anyone understands what's happening to you and how it connects to Luffy's legacy, it's her." Bonnie stood at the stern, watching the submarine grow smaller as Nami navigated their vessel away at top speed. "They're not pursuing," she noted with suspicion. "They're letting us go, because they know exactly where we're headed," Naruto realized. The captain saw Nami check her log pose. "They'll radio ahead to cut us off before we reach Water 7. Nami's hands tightened on the rudder. Then we need to be unpredictable. A slow smile spread across her face, the expression of a tactician forming a plan. Naruto, how many of those shadow clones can you make, and how far can they travel? Naruto matched her smile with one of his own. Hundreds. And they can go anywhere I can see or have been before. Perfect. Nami pointed to different directions around their vessel. I need decoys. Lots of them. Can you transform your clones to look like this ship? Transformation jutsu is basic academy stuff, Naruto replied with confidence. Just tell me what you need. As Nami outlined her strategy, Naruto couldn't help but admire her tactical thinking. She had the strategic mind of a Nara combined with Sakura's precision and Kakashi's adaptability. Despite the danger, he felt the familiar thrill of facing a challenge alongside capable comrades. This world might not be his own, but the fundamentals hadn't changed. Protect your precious people, stand against tyranny, and never give up. And if this scattered crown truly sought him as its vessel, well, he'd never backed down from responsibility before. The power of the Pirate King, according to Nami, meant freedom and truth, ideals worth fighting for in any dimension. Unbidden, Jiraiya's words echoed in his memory. In this world, wherever there is light, there will always be shadows. As long as there is a concept of victors, the vanquished will also exist. Perhaps that was why he'd been brought here, to carry a light that others had tried to extinguish. To become a different kind of king than his world had prepared him for, but with the same fundamental purpose, protection. Ready? Nami asked, interrupting his thoughts. Naruto nodded, forming the cross-shaped seal as chakra surged around him, mingling with the red-gold energy that seemed increasingly natural to his system. Let's show this world government what happens when they try to contain a maelstrom. Dawn broke over a seemingly empty stretch of ocean. The small fishing sloop drifted lazily on gentle currents. Its sail lowered, appearing abandoned to casual observation. Beneath a carefully constructed genjutsu, another technique Naruto had found modified by this world's energy, three figures waited in tense silence. They should have found one of the decoys by now, Nami whispered, eyes fixed on the horizon where the first hints of sunlight painted the clouds in crimson and gold. Bonnie, uncharacteristically still, nodded toward the north. There, a distant flash marked naval gunfire, followed seconds later by the deep boom of heavy artillery. Naruto's clone, Hang-T-O resemble their vessel with two passenger decoys, had successfully drawn the Navy's attention nearly 50 miles off their actual position. Your clones can take a hit before dispersing? Nami asked. One or two, Naruto confirmed. Enough to convince them they're chasing the real thing. They had spent the night executing Nami's masterful strategy, deploying shadow clones transformed into duplicate vessels in 6 different directions, each sailing a convincing course toward a different potential destination. Meanwhile, their actual vessel had essentially parked, presenting minimal profile while Naruto's genjutsu masked them from observation. They'll figure it out eventually, Bonnie noted, helping herself to a preserved fish from their dwindling supplies. But by then, we'll be somewhere they aren't looking. Nami nodded, consulting her log pose. The needle's stabilizing. We can make for the southern route. It's longer, but we can reach Water 7 by circling around through the calm belt. The sea with no wind and giant sea monsters. Naruto clarified, having received a crash course in Grand Line geography overnight. The very same, Nami confirmed with a grim smile. No Navy ships patrol there because it's essentially a death trap for conventional vessels. So naturally, that's where we're headed, Bonnie drawled sarcastically. Unless you'd prefer to face Akainu and his fleet, Nami countered. Bonnie's expression darkened at the name. Pass. I've seen what that man can do firsthand. Naruto sensed a story there, something personal in Bonnie's reaction, but knew better than to pry. In the short time he'd known these women, he'd recognized the same quality he'd seen in so many of his precious people back home, strength forged through hardship. As they prepared the vessel to sail again, Naruto found himself drawn once more to the poneglyph fragment. Each time he touched it, different words formed in his mind, fragments of a message he couldn't quite piece together. The voice of all things, as Nami called it, seemed to be trying to communicate something vital. The scattered crown seeks its bearer, the inherited will continues, dawn approaches once more. having conversations with rocks now?" Bonnie asked, startling him from his communion with the ancient stone. Naruto withdrew his hand somewhat sheepishly. "It's not exactly talking. More like impressions. Fragments of meaning." Bonnie studied him with unexpected seriousness. "You know, in all the legends about the Pirate King's power, there's one consistent theme. It chooses its vessel, not the other way around. Meaning that of all the places your dimensional rift could have deposited you, it chose here. Now, when the world is balanced on the edge of another great change." She poked him in the chest, unintimidated by his powers. "If you're absorbing what's left of Straw Hat's abilities, it's because something bigger than all of us decided you should." Naruto considered this as they set sail, Nami expertly guiding them toward the dreaded calm belt. The concept wasn't entirely foreign to him. Hadn't Kurama chosen him as much as his father had chosen Kurama for him? Hadn't Angasura's reincarnation shaped his destiny in ways he couldn't have anticipated? Perhaps dimensions themselves had natural laws and wills that transcended human understanding. "She's not wrong," Kurama rumbled within him. "This power calls to us like a missing piece we didn't know was absent. It feels right." Their vessel picked up speed as they entered waters with stronger currents. According to Nami, they would sail south until reaching the calm belt, then navigate its dangerous waters before circling back toward Water 7 from a direction the Navy wouldn't anticipate. Hours passed in relative quiet, each person lost in their own thoughts as they sailed. Occasionally, Naruto would create clones to assist with shipboard tasks or scout ahead, impressing both women with his versatility and endurance. As evening approached, they reached the boundary of the calm belt, a stark line where waves simply ceased, giving way to an unnaturally placid surface that stretched to the horizon. "This is it," Nami announced, her voice tight with concentration. "Once we cross, there's no wind to power our sail. Naruto, we'll need your clones to row." Bonnie had moved to the bow, scanning he mirror-like waters ahead with obvious apprehension. "I don't see any sea kings yet, but they're down there." Waiting, Naruto joined her at the bow, extending his enhanced senses. What he felt below made him stiffen involuntarily. Massive presences, larger than anything he'd encountered before, moving with predatory intent through the depths. "I can feel them," he confirmed. "Dozens, some as big as the Hokage monument." Nami guided their vessel to the boundary, then paused, turning to face him directly. "Before we cross, there's something you should know. The poneglyph fragment mentions, the one who brings the dawn, for a reason. That was Luffy's other title, the Dawn Bringer. It referred to an ancient prophecy about someone who would return freedom to the world." She glanced at the setting sun, its fading light casting long shadows across their small craft. "By seeking Robin, by pursuing the truth of what's happening to you, we're essentially declaring war on the world government. The same government that executed the Pirate King and has spent 5 years trying to erase his legacy." "What Tangerine Head is trying to say," Bonnie interjected, "is that you've gotten out. We could drop you at the next inhabited island, and you could try finding your own way home without getting involved in our world's mess." Naruto looked between the two women, Nami with her calculating intelligence barely masking deep conviction, and Bonnie with her brash exterior concealing unexpected depth. In just one day, they had become his first connections to this strange new world. "Where I come from," he said slowly, "I never ran from a fight worth fighting. If this power chose me for a reason, I intend to find out why." He smiled, the expression transforming his entire face with its sincerity. "Besides, I made a promise to help Nami deliver her package to Robin, and I never go back on my word. That's my ninja way." Something in Nami's expression softened, a barely perceptible lowering of guards she'd maintained since they'd met. "You really are like him," she murmured. Before Naruto could respond, the water 30 yards ahead erupted as a massive serpentine form breached the surface, a sea king larger than the Kyuubi himself, with gleaming scales and rows of teeth that could shred their vessel in seconds. "Showtime," Bonnie announced, her body shifting to her physical prime, a form she'd explained was her natural state. Approximately 25 years old, Nami assembled her klima tact with practiced speed. "Remember, noise attracts more of them. Whatever you do, make it quick and decisive." Naruto nodded, stepping to the very edge of the bow. The Sea King had spotted them, its massive head turning as it prepared to strike. In a single fluid motion, Naruto gathered chakra, his familiar blue energy now interwoven with strands of red gold, and extended his hand. "I don't want to hurt you," he said quietly, knowing the creature couldn't understand his words but might comprehend his intent. "But I will protect my friends." The Sea King lunged forward with frightening speed. Naruto remained perfectly still, hand outstretched, as an invisible wave of energy expanded outward from his body, pure conqueror's haki. Refined and focused through his chakra control, the massive creature stopped mid-lunge, its enormous eyes widening with what could only be described as recognition. A sound, not quite a roar, not quite a whimper, escaped its cavernous maw before it slowly, deliberately, sank back beneath the surface. Silence fell across the calm belt. The water around their vessel remained undisturbed as other presences Naruto had sensed retreated to deeper waters. "What did you just do?" Nami asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Naruto turned back to his companions, as surprised as they were. "I'm not entirely sure. I just told it we weren't enemies." "With your mind?" Bonnie pressed, her usual sarcasm absent. "Not exactly. More like, with my spirit." Naruto struggled to articulate what had happened. "It felt like when I connect with the tailed beasts, but different." Nami lowered her weapon slowly, understanding dawning in her eyes. The voice of all things. Luffy could do something similar near the end, communicate with creatures others thought were mindless monsters. She gazed out across the unnaturally calm sea with new purpose. "This changes everything. We can cross directly through the calm belt without fighting." True to her prediction, their journey through the dreaded waters proved uneventful. Naruto's shadow clones rode in shifts, propelling their vessel across the windless expanse while massive shapes occasionally circled beneath them, observing but never attacking. Night fell, stars reflecting perfectly on the mirror-like surface, creating the illusion they sailed through the cosmos itself. Nami maintained their course with expert precision, checking their position against the stars while Bonnie kept watch. Naruto sat cross-legged at the bow, meditating as he explored the continuing changes to his chakra network. The energy from this world, what they called haki, had integrated with his own power in fascinating ways. His sensing abilities had expanded beyond even Sage Mode's capabilities. His control over wind release now extended to subtle atmospheric manipulation. And this voice of all things seemed to connect him to entities beyond human comprehension. "Penny for your thoughts," Nami asked, joining him at the bow during a brief respite from navigation. "Just trying to understand what I'm becoming," Naruto admitted. "This power feels familiar somehow. Like it recognizes me." Nami hugged her knees to her chest, gazing up at the stars. Luffy had this effect on people, and apparently on power itself. Things just gravitated toward him. Adventures, friends, enemies, destiny. She smiled faintly. He was like a force of nature. "You miss him," Naruto observed gently. "Every day." She didn't elaborate, but he weight of those two words carried volumes. After a moment, she added, "We all scattered after his execution. It was too dangerous to stay together. The world government wanted to make examples of the entire Straw Hat crew." "Yet you're still carrying on his work," Naruto noted. "Seeking the truth, protecting his legacy." Nami's laugh held little humor. "Someone has to. The truth he discovered about the Void Century, about the ancient kingdom, about the meaning of it can't die with him." Her expression hardened. "The world government has ruled through lies for 800 years. The Trut H is the only weapon powerful enough to change that. And Robin can help us understand this truth." "Robin is the truth," Nami replied with conviction. "She's the only person alive who can read the language of the poneglyphs without assistance. Every fragment we recover, every piece we protect, brings us closer to completing the history Luffy died to uncover." Their conversation was interrupted by Bonnie's call from the stern. "We've got something approaching, fast." Both turned to see a disturbance in the water, not the vertical emergence of a sea king, but the horizontal wake of something moving just beneath the surface. Something heading directly for their vessel with deliberate intent. Naruto extended his senses, then relaxed slightly. "It's not hostile." Before either woman could question his assessment, a sleek form breached beside their boat, a massive shark, easily 20 feet long, with distinctive markings and intelligent eyes. More surprisingly, it wore what appeared to be a fitted coat around its shoulders, marking it as no ordinary shark. A fish man, Nami gasped, recognition flashing across her features. Wait, is that? The shark circled their vessel once, THN transformed in a fluid motion into a powerful humanoid figure with shark-like features. He balanced effortlessly on the water's surface, arms crossed over a broad chest adorned with tribal tattoos. Nami of the Straw Hats. The fish man acknowledged with a formal nod. It has been some time. Jinbei, Nami responded, her voice thick with emotion. You're alive. The fish man's expression remained stoic, but his eyes conveyed warmth. As are you, I am pleased to see. His gaze shifted to Naruto, narrowing with assessment rather than hostility. And you have found him. The 1-hour watchers detected entering this world. Naruto stepped forward. You know about me. We have been monitoring disturbances in the balance for years, Jinbei explained. When the power of the Pirate King scattered, it created ripples throughout all seas. Fishmen feel these changes more acutely than surface dwellers. He gestured to the depths below. The Sea Kings have already spread word of your arrival. Why call you? The one who speaks with respect. It has been many years since they used such a title. Nami moved to the edge of the vessel. Jinbei, we're trying to reach Robin. Do you know where she is? The fish man's expression grew somber. I do, and I have been sent to guide you to her, carefully. The world government has moved their most dangerous assets into position throughout the Grand Line. They know something significant has occurred. His gaze returned to Naruto. They fear the return of Joy Boy's will. The name triggered a response from the poneglyph fragment below deck, a pulse of energy Naruto felt even without touching it. Joy Boy, he questioned. A figure from the Void Century, Nami explained quickly. Connected to the ancient kingdom and the creation of the poneglyphs. Luffy was somehow connected to his legacy. Jinbei nodded. And now, it seems, so are you. He gestured to the south. We must move quickly. Dawn approaches, and with it, Navy patrols will resume their search patterns. Can we trust him? Bonnie asked Nami quietly, though not quietly enough to escape Jinbei's hearing. The fish man turned his imposing gaze to her. Jewelry Bonnie, the survivor who walks between ages. Your caution is warranted, but unnecessary. I serve the same cause as you, the truth, and the freedom it will bring. Bonnie met his stare without flinching. And what cause is that, exactly? The fulfillment of Luffy Kun's dream, Jinbei answered simply. A world where all species live in freedom, without fear of those who would rule through deception and force. Something in his straightforward answer seemed to satisfy Bonnie, who nodded once before returning to her position. Jinbei returned to his shark form, circling their vessel once more before taking position just ahead. Follow closely. I know passages through these waters that even the calm belt's denizens avoid. As they resumed their journey, now following the powerful fish man through increasingly complex currents, Naruto found himself reflecting on everything he'd learned in his first day in this new world. The parallels to his own were striking. Powerful figures manipulating history, ancient truths suppressed. And the inherited will of those who fought for freedom passing to new generations. Perhaps dimensions weren't so different after all, when it came to the fundamental struggles that shaped them. The poneglyph fragment pulsed again below deck, its message growing clearer in Naruto's mind. The scattered crown gathers upon the brow of one who carries the will of fire across worlds. Fire. The fundamental element of the Leaf Village's philosophy. The will that had been passed down from the first Hokage through generations. His will. The will of fire meets the inherited will, Naruto murmured to himself. Watching Jinbei's powerful form cutting through the water ahead. Whatever destiny had brought him to this world, whatever power had chosen him as its vessel, he would face it as he had faced every challenge before. With determination, compassion, and the unshakable belief that true strength came from protecting what was precious. Dawn broke over the calm belt, illuminating their small vessel and its shark guardian as they navigated toward an uncertain future, toward Robin, toward truth, and toward the convergence of powers that would reshape two worlds. Chapter 1 End. Chapter 2. Shows of legacy mist clung to ancient ruins like ghostly fingers, reluctant to relinquish their hold even as morning sun pierced the gloom. The island that had once been Ohara, the tree of knowledge, the center of world scholarship, and the site of a genocide that had nearly extinguished the study of true history, remained largely uninhabited 2 decades after its destruction. Locals from neighboring islands called it haunted. Sailors spoke of strange lights and whispered voices that emerged after dark. They weren't entirely wrong. Jinbei's powerful form cut through the water with tireless precision, guiding their small vessel through treacherous currents toward a hidden cove on the island's western face. The journey from the calm belt had taken nearly 16 hours of continuous travel, navigating routes no conventional ship could access, underwater passages, spaces between tidal forces, and channels known only to the denizens of the deep. Naruto stood at the bow, golden hair whipping in the sea breeze as Ohara's silhouette emerged from dispersing fog. Even without setting foot on its soil, he could sense something profound about this place, echoes of past catastrophe imprinted on the very landscape, lingering like chakra signatures after a massive jutsu. "I can feel it," he said quietly. "What happened here?" Nami joined him at the railing, her eyes shadowed with grim knowledge. "The Buster Call, the world government's most extreme response to threats against their control of information." Her voice carried the weight of personal history. "They've used it multiple times over the centuries, erasing entire islands and civilizations to protect their secrets. Including here," Naruto concluded. "Because people were learning the truth about the Void Century. Because one little girl learned to read the language that could expose their lies," Nami corrected, her gaze fixed on the approaching shoreline. Robin was the only survivor. She was 8 years old. The information settled heavily in Naruto's mind, adding new dimensions to the conflict he'd been drawn into. This world government didn't just suppress information, they exterminated entire populations to maintain their control. The parallels to the Uchiha massacre and other hidden leaf tragedies were unsettling. "And now she's returned," he observed. "That takes courage." "Robin has never lacked for courage," Nami replied with a hint of pride. "Just reasons to use it." Their vessel rounded a particularly jagged outcropping of rock, revealing a narrow inlet nearly invisible from the open sea. Jinbei, still in shark form, led them through this final approach before surfacing beside their boat as they entered calmer waters. "We have arrived," the fish man announced, transforming back to his humanoid state. "But I must warn you, approach with caution. Robin-san has established defenses." As if to emphasize his point, dozens of eyes suddenly bloomed across the cliff faces surrounding the cove, disembodied human eyes. Watching their arrival from every conceivable angle, Naruto's shinobi instincts recognized an advanced surveillance technique when he saw one. "Well, that's not creepy at all," Bonnie muttered, eyeing the nearest manifestation with suspicion. Hana no mi," Nami explained to Naruto. "Robin's devil fruit power allows her to sprout replicas of her body parts anywhere within her range." Naruto nodded appreciatively. "Like a Kekkei Genkei, a bloodline limit technique." Their vessel drifted toward a small wooden dock that had been constructed with meticulous precision. As they drew closer, Naruto detected additional layers of security, pressure plates disguised as natural stone, tripwires hidden among beach grass, and what appeared to be explosive tags of some kind embedded in strategic locations. "She's not taking any chances," he observed. "She never does," Nami responded, her voice softening with complicated emotion. "Not anymore." Jinbei guided their boat to the dock, securing lines with practiced efficiency before addressing them once more. "I must return to my duties with the Revolutionary Army. They will need to know of your arrival." His gaze settled on Naruto with particular intensity. "When you meet Robin-san, speak honestly. She values truth above all else." With that parting advice, the fish man dove beneath the waves, disappearing into the depths with barely a ripple. Nami led their small group onto the dock and up a winding path that had been carved into the cliffside. Eyes continued to bloom and vanish around them, tracking their progress with unwavering attention. The ruins of Ohara gradually came into view, blackened stone structures, half-collapsed buildings, and the charred remnants of what must have once been an enormous tree dominating the island's center. Yet amidst this desolation, signs of careful restoration were evident. Several structures had been meticulously rebuilt using original materials. Excavations had been conducted with archaeological precision, and solar-powered equipment hummed softly from discrete locations, supporting what appeared to be an extensive research operation. "She's been busy," Nami commented, surveying the changes since her last visit. "Not just her," Bonnie noted, pointing to multiple sets of footprints in the soft earth, evidence of a small team working the site. They approached the largest of restored buildings, a two-story structure that had once been part of the island's famous library. Its facade had been reconstructed with painstaking attention to historical detail, while the interior had been converted into a combination of living quarters and research facility. Before they could reach the entrance, the doors swung open. Nico Robin stood framed in the doorway, her tall figure silhouetted against the warm light from within. At 43, she carried herself with the quiet dignity of a woman who had survived far more than most could imagine. Her raven hair, now accented with barest hints of silver at the temples, fell in a straight curtain to her shoulders. Intelligent blue eyes assessed the visitors with methodical precision. "Nami," she acknowledged, her voice a mellow contralto that revealed nothing of her feelings. "It's been 18 months. Hello, Robin." Nami stepped forward with a tentative smile. "I would have come sooner, but the Navy has said patrols around all former Straw Hat territories," Robin finished for her. "I'm aware. I've had to take increasingly creative routes for my own travel." Her gaze shifted to their companions, lingering particularly on Naruto. "Jewelry Bonnie, the age witch. And," she paused, head tilting slightly as she studied the blonde shinobi with undisguised interest. "You're the anomaly that's causing such a stir among government intelligence." The dimensional traveler. Naruto met her analytical gaze directly. "Uzumaki Naruto," he introduced himself with a respectful bow. "Thank you for allowing us to come to your island." A ghost of amusement flickered across Robin's features. "It's hardly my island. I'm merely reclaiming what was stolen." She stepped aside, gesturing for them to enter. "Come inside. If you made it past my surveillance and Jinbei brought you personally, I suppose you're worth hearing out." The interior of the building revealed Robin's true work. Every wall was covered with meticulously organized research, photographs of poneglyph fragments, transcriptions of ancient texts, and maps marked with locations spanning the entire world. Sophisticated equipment hummed quietly in one corner, analyzing material samples and cross-referencing data. In the center of the main room, a large table displayed a three-dimensional holographic model of what appeared to be interconnected temple structures. "Your base of operations," Bonnie observed, examining the setup with grudging respect. "All this time, everyone thought you were hiding in the new world." "A useful misconception I've encouraged," Robin confirmed, moving to a kettle that had begun to whistle. With practiced movements, she prepared tea for her unexpected guests. "The government would never suspect I'd return to tea. The very place they destroyed to silence my people." Her gaze shifted back to Naruto as she handed him a steaming cup. "Now, explain to me why I shouldn't immediately escort you off this island." Your revolt has sent shockwaves through the entirety of the Grand Line. Every Revolutionary Army outpost is on high alert, the Navy has mobilized their strongest forces, and my surveillance network reports unprecedented movement from I.M. Sama's personal guard. The name meant nothing to Naruto, but the tension it created in both Nami and Bonnie was palpable. "The highest authority in the world government," Nami explained quietly. "The shadow ruler whose existence Luffy exposed." Robin's expression remained carefully neutral as she took a seat across from them. "So you see my concern. The last time someone caused this level of response, my captain was executed and my crew scattered to the winds." Her voice carried no accusation, merely stating facts. "What exactly are you, Uzumaki Naruto?" Naruto considered his response carefully, sensing the importance of this moment. Jinbei had advised honesty, and his own instincts agreed. This woman had survived by detecting lies and half-truths. "I'm a shinobi from Konohagakure," he began, setting down his untouched tea. "During a battle with an enemy who could manipulate dimensions, I was thrown into this world. But something happened during the transition. My chakra, my energy, interacted with something here. It's changing me." "The scattered crown," Robin murmured, eyes sharpening with academic interest. Naruto nodded. "That's what the poneglyph fragment called it. Nami thinks it's connected to your former captain, the Pirate King's power seeking a new vessel. For the first time, Robin's composed demeanor faltered slightly. She turned to Nami with an unspoken question in her eyes. In response, Nami retrieved the cylindrical case from her bag, placing it carefully on the table between them. I recovered this from Logatown's governor. It reacted to Naruto's presence, and he could hear it speaking. Robin's hands, elegant and steady, opened the case with reverent precision. When the poneglyph fragment was revealed, her fingers hovered above its surface without touching. As if she could absorb its meaning through proximity alone. You can read it, she asked Naruto quietly. Not exactly read, he clarified. More like, it speaks directly into my mind. Different messages at different times. Robin's expression transformed subtly, the reserved scholar giving way to the passionate archaeologist who had dedicated her life to uncovering truth. Show me. Naruto reached out, placing his palm flat against the stone fragment. Immediately, the strange symbols began to glow with a soft golden light, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. The voice that had spoken to him before returned, but stronger now, more coherent in Robin's presence. The scattered crown seeks the spiral child, the one who bridges worlds shall inherit the dawn. The voice of all things awakens once more. As he repeated these words aloud, Robin's eyes widened incrementally, the only visible indication of what must have been profound shock. The spiral child, she repeated, her gaze flicking to Naruto's distinctive facial markings, then to his surname. Uzumaki, the Whirlpool clan. Her mind was clearly making connections at remarkable speed. And you bear the marks of the Sun God. This was new information to Naruto. Sun God, Nika, Robin explained, rising to retrieve a scroll from her extensive collection. A figure from ancient mythology. Who was said to bring laughter and freedom wherever he went. The warrior of liberation. She unrolled the scroll to reveal a primitive drawing of a grinning, flame-haired deity with distinctive marks on its cheeks. Naruto stared at the ancient image, unsettled by its resemblance to both himself and the Nine Tails chakra mode he accessed in battle. When Luffy awakened the true nature of his devil fruit in the final battle with Kaido, he took on aspects of this form, Robin continued. The world government had hidden the fruit's true name for centuries, the Hito Hito no Mi, model, Nika. The human fruit, sun god type. And now pieces of that power are finding their way to me, Naruto concluded, the implications settling uncomfortably. But why? Why would this world's power choose someone from outside it? Robin's response was measured, thoughtful. Perhaps precisely because you are outside it. The world government has spent 5 years systematically eliminating anyone who might inherit Luffy's will or power. Every carrier is monitored. Every individual displaying unusual haki growth is tracked or recruited. Every remaining road poneglyph is under constant surveillance. They couldn't anticipate someone entering from another dimension entirely, Nami added, understanding dawning. Someone already powerful in their own right, with a compatible energy system. Exactly. Robin turned back to Naruto. This power, the scattered crown, as the poneglyph calls it, needed a vessel the world government couldn't predict or control. Bonnie, who had been uncharacteristically quiet during this exchange, suddenly spoke up. There's more to it than that. All eyes turned to her as she continued. The government has been conducting experiments with dimensional energy for years. After Vegapunk's death, his successor focused almost exclusively on interdimensional research. This revelation clearly surprised even Robin. How do you know this? A shadow passed over Bonnie's features. Because I infiltrated their main research facilities 6 months ago. They're not just studying dimensions, they're trying to access them. Something about expanding the celestial dragons do. Minion beyond current cosmic limitations. They're looking for new worlds to conquer, Naruto translated grimly. Or escape to, if this one becomes untenable, Robin suggested. The revolutionary my success has been unprecedented since Dragon allied with the remaining emperors. The government is losing its grip on the outlying seas. She returned her attention to the poneglyph fragment, her expression contemplative. I need to conduct proper research on this fragment, and on you, Naruto-san, if you're willing. The connection between your chakra and the scattered remnants of Luffy's power could be the key to understanding what's truly happening. Naruto nodded his agreement. I want to understand this as much as you do. In my world, I have people waiting for me, counting on me. But I see. Can't return until I know why I was brought here. Then we begin immediately, Robin decided, her academic enthusiasm breaking through her careful reserve. I'll need samples of your energy, detailed accounts of your abilities, and observations of how they're changing in response to this world. Nami cleared her throat meaningfully. Robin, we were followed to Logatown. The Navy already suspects we're seeking you out. Is this location secure enough for extended research? Robin's smile held secrets accumulated over decades of survival. This is merely one of several facilities I maintain. My primary research base is considerably more inaccessible. She glanced toward a heavily reinforced door at the back of the room. But first, we should examine what the poneglyph fragment can tell us with Naruto-san's assistance. Hours stretched into days as Robin's methodical research process unfolded. The archaeologist worked with tireless precision, documenting every interaction between Naruto and the ancient stone, recording the messages that came through, and cross-referencing them with her extensive knowledge of world history. For Naruto, the experience was both fascinating and occasionally disorienting. Each time he connected with the poneglyph fragment, new aspects of his sensory abilities expanded. The voice of all things grew stronger, allowing him to perceive the island itself as a living entity with memories embedded in its very soil. During meditation sessions, he could sense presences across vast distances, ships approaching from miles away, sea creatures communicating beneath the waves. Even the emotional states of his companions without seeing their expressions. It's like an advanced form of sage mode, he explained to Robin on the third day, as she documented changes in his chakra flow. But instead of just sensing natural energy, I'm connecting to everything. The voice of everything that exists. Robin nodded thoughtfully, making careful notes. That aligns with what we know of Joy Boy's abilities from ancient texts. The capacity to hear the voice of all creation, from the mightiest kings to the humblest insects. She had set up specialized equipment to analyze Naruto's chakra, adapting technology originally designed to measure Haki expressions. The results consistently showed his native energy system gradually harmonizing with this world's power structures, chakra pathways expanding to accommodate Haki flows, and his already substantial reserves growing exponentially. Your adaptation rate is remarkable, Robin observed, reviewing the latest data. Most people spend decades developing basic Haki control. You've integrated advanced applications in days. Naruto shrugged. I've always been a fast learner with practical techniques. Book learning, not so much. A rare smile touched Robin's lips. Some things transcend dimensions, it seems. Their research sessions had gradually thawed the archaeologist's initial reserve, though still measured in her responses. Robin had begun sharing more of her knowledge freely, explaining the complex history of the world, the nature of devil fruits, and the structure of the world government with passionate detail of someone who had dedicated her life to uncovering truth. Naruto, in turn, described his world's shinobi system, the nature of chakra, and the history of the elemental nations. Robin proved to be an excellent listener, asking incisive questions that often helped clarify his own understanding of concepts he'd always taken for granted. Meanwhile, Nami divided her time between assisting with research and maintaining their security perimeter, using her weather science to create atmospheric conditions that would confuse Navy surveillance. Bonnie frequently disappeared on reconnaissance missions, returning with reports of increased military movement throughout the surrounding waters. On the evening of the fifth day, Robin called them together for what she described as a significant breakthrough. I've completed my analysis of the poneglyph fragment, she announced, displaying a comprehensive translation on the main research screen. With Naruto-san's assistance, I've been able to access content that was previously indecipherable, layered meaning that only becomes visible when activated by the voice of all things. The screen displayed symbols that continuously shifted and rearranged themselves, forming new patterns as they watched. This isn't a standard historical poneglyph, Robin explained, her voice taking on the measured cadence she used when presenting academic findings. It's what I've theorized might exist but never confirmed until now, a resonance poneglyph. A stone specifically designed to react to certain individuals or energies. Like a security system, Naruto suggested. Recognizing specific chakra signatures. Precisely, Robin agreed. This fragment was calibrated to recognize and respond to the energy signature of Joy Boy, and by extension, those who carry aspects of his will or power. Nami leaned forward, studying the shifting patterns. What is it actually saying? It contains coordinates, Robin revealed, highlighting a specific sequence. To a location that doesn't appear on any conventional map, a place called Concordia. According to the text, it's a meeting place, where dimensions grow thin and the scattered shall be made whole. A place where dimensions grow thin. Naruto repeated, excitement building. That could be my way home. Or, Bonnie interjected from her position by the window, it could be exactly what the world government is looking for in their dimensional research. Robin nodded soberly. The fragment also contains a warning. The bridge between worlds must not fall to those who would build empires across realities. The implications settled heavily over the group. If the world government obtained access to interdimensional travel, their dominion could extend beyond this world to countless others, including Naruto's home. Then we find this Concordia first, Naruto decided firmly. Before they do, Robin's expression remained cautious. The coordinates indicate a location in what we now call the New World, specifically in a region known as the Sea of Storms. It's one of the most dangerous and inaccessible areas of the Grand Line, continuously ravaged by magnetic anomalies and weather patterns that defy conventional physics. I can navigate it, Nami stated with quiet confidence. If anyone can reach this place, I can. I don't doubt your skills, Robin acknowledged. But the Navy has established unprecedented patrol density throughout the New World. And according to Bonnie's intelligence, they're particularly focused on the Sea of Storms region. Because they've detected the dimensional thinning. Bonnie concluded, joining them at the table. They may not have the exact coordinates, but they know something important is there. Naruto absorbed this information, consighed. Ring their options with the strategic mindset honed through years of increasingly complex missions. We need more resources, a faster ship, supplies for an extended journey, and possibly allies who can help create diversions. The Revolutionary Army could assist, Robin suggested. Dragon has owed me a favor since I provided critical intelligence during the Mariajoy infiltration. Too slow, Bonnie countered. By the time we contact them, establish credentials, and coordinate a plan, the Navy could have the entire area locked down. Nami had grown uncharacteristically quiet, a thoughtful expression crossing her features. There's another option, she said finally. The Hyuga Trading Company. Robin's eyebrows rose slightly, a significant display of surprise from the normally composed archaeologist. The Neutral Consortium. They haven't taken sides in any conflict since the Paramount War. Exactly, Nami confirmed. They maintain their neutrality by trading with all factions, government, revolutionary, pirates, independent nations. Their ships pass through Navy blockades without inspection because their commercial contracts include high-ranking world nobles. And you think they'll help us? Bonnie asked skeptically. A knowing smile played across Nami's lips. Their regional headquarters is on Watersphere Island, 2 days sail from here with favorable winds. I saved their chief accountant from bankruptcy 3 years ago. He owes me. It's risky, Robin noted. The Hyuga are known for their emphasis on protocol and propriety. They may not appreciate fugitives appearing on their doorstep. We won't be fugitives, Nami countered. We'll be potential business partners with valuable trade goods. She gestured toward Naruto, including unique services from a dimensional consultant with unprecedented abilities. Naruto blinked. You're going to use me as a bargaining chip. Welcome to life with the Straw Hat Pirates negotiator, Bonnie snickered. She'd sell her own grandmother if the price was right. I would not, Nami protested indignantly. I'd at least wait for a seasonal market upswing. Despite the gravity of their situation, Naruto found himself smiling at the exchange. These women, with their complex histories and distinct personalities, reminded him increasingly of his precious people back home, different in specific traits, but sharing that essentia. Quality of resilience and determination that had always drawn him to others. Robin returned their focus to the immediate concern. If we pursue this Hyuga connection, we should depart by morning. My surveillance network has detected increased Navy communication activity in this sector. They're narrowing their search patterns. Then it's decided, Naruto concluded. We make for Watersphere Island. D and seek the Hyuga Trading Company's assistance. As the others dispersed to prepare for departure, Robin gestured for Naruto to remain behind. When they were alone, she spoke in a lower voice, her expression more open than he'd yet seen. "There's something I haven't shared with the others," she confessed. "Something the poneglyph revealed only during our final session." Naruto waited patiently as she collected her thoughts. "The resonance effect grows stronger with each interaction," Robin continued. "In our last connection, the stone revealed an additional message specifically about you." Her eyes met his directly. "It called you the second coming of the spiral sun, a direct reference to both your Uzumaki lineage and the sun god Nika." "What does that mean?" Naruto asked quietly. "I believe it means your arrival wasn't accidental," Robin stated. "This world, or some force within it, specifically called to you across dimensions. The power that scattered after Luffy's death has been seeking you, specifically." The revelation should have felt more surprising than it did. Throughout his life, Naruto had gradually come to understand how larger forces had shaped his destiny, being the Nine Tails Jinchuriki. Carrying Asura's reincarnated spirit, fulfilling ancient sage prophecies. The pattern was familiar, if unwelcome. "There's more," Robin added, observing his reaction carefully. "The poneglyph mentioned that, when the spiral sun fully awakens, the dawn of worlds will follow. I believe this refers to a complete integration of your chakra with the Pirate King's scattered abilities." "An awakening," Naruto murmured, recalling how Robin had described Luffy's final transformation against Kaido. "Like a devil fruit awakening." "Similar, but potentially more significant," Robin confirmed. "If my interpretation is correct, your full awakening would allow you to access abilities beyond what either you or Luffy could individually achieve, perhaps including control over the boundaries between dimensions themselves." The implications were staggering. Not just a way home, but potentially the power to move freely between worlds, or to prevent others from doing so. The world government would do anything to prevent such power from manifesting outside their control, Robin concluded grimly. "It explains the unprecedented response to your arrival." Naruto absorbed this information silently, feeling the weight of responsibility settle across his shoulders like a familiar cloak. Always, it seemed, he was destined for roles larger than himself: vessel, savior, bridge between opposing forces. "Thank you for telling me," he said finally. "I'd rather know what I'm facing." Robin's expression softened marginally. "Knowledge has always been my only true weapon. I won't withhold it from an ally." She paused, then added with uncharacteristic hesitation, "Luffy would have liked you, I think. You share his essential nature, despite your different origins." Coming from her, Naruto understood this was perhaps the highest compliment she could offer. "I wish I could have met him," he replied sincerely. "So do I," Robin said quietly, before returning to her preparations with renewed purpose. Dawn painted the eastern sky in watercolor hues as their small vessel departed Ohara's hidden cove. Robin had closed her research facility with practiced efficiency, encrypting data, concealing equipment, and leaving behind sophisticated traps for unwanted visitors. The poneglyph fragment traveled with them, secured in a specialized container designed to mask its unique energy signature. Naruto stood at the bow, extending his enhanced senses to scan for potential threats as Nami navigated through early morning mist. The integration of Sage Mode with the voice of all things had created a perception range that continued to astonish him. He could feel ships moving more than 20 miles distant, sense the emotional states of sea creatures passing beneath their keel, and detect subtle changes in weather patterns before they became visible. "Northeast quadrant," he reported quietly. "Navy patrol vessel, approximately 18 miles and maintaining course." "They haven't detected us," Nami nodded, adjusting their heading slightly. "Robin's weather manipulation equipment is working perfectly. As far as their instruments are concerned, this entire area is experiencing a Class 3 magnetic storm." The aforementioned archaeologist emerged from below deck, having completed a comprehensive inventory of their supplies. "We have provisions for 4 days at current consumption rates. Sufficient for reaching Watersphere, but little margin for delays." Bonnie, who accounted for approximately 60% of said consumption rates, merely shrugged as she continued her breakfast. The age-manipulating pirate had proven surprisingly useful during their preparations, her ability to transform into an elderly scholar having allowed her to visit a neighboring island for final supplies without arousing suspicion. Their journey proceeded smoothly through the morning hours, the small vessel making excellent time under Nami's expert navigation. By midday, they had left Ohara's territorial waters behind, entering the more traveled shipping lanes that would eventually lead to Watersphere Island. "Tell me more about these Hyuga people," Naruto requested as they shared a simple lunch of preserved fish and rice balls. "In my world, the Hyuga clan is one of Konoha's oldest and most prestigious families. They possess a bloodline limit called the Byakugan, eyes that can see chakra pathways and through solid objects." Robin looked up from her book with evident interest. "Fascinating. The Hyuga of this world are similarly distinguished by their eyes, pale, almost white irises that they claim allow them to see the true value in all things. It's generally dismissed as a metaphorical description of their business acumen, but perhaps there's more to it. They originated on a sky island that crashed into the sea during the Void Century," Nami added. "At least, that's their official history. They've maintained a strictly neutral stance in world politics for centuries," Akumula. "Ting wealth and influence through trade rather than military power. Doesn't mean they don't have power," Bonnie interjected around a mouthful of food. "Their security forces are elite. Some say they use a fighting style that targets pressure points to disable opponents without weapons." Naruto's eyebrows rose at the familiar description. "That sounds exactly like the gentle fist style used by the Hyuga in my world. They target chakra points with precise strikes." "Another interdimensional parallel," Robin observed thoughtfully. "It suggests a deeper connection between our worlds than mere coincidence." Their discussion was interrupted by a sudden shift in Naruto's awareness, a prickling sensation at the edge of his expanded senses. He stood abruptly, gaze fixed on the horizon behind them. "Something's coming," he announced. "Fast, and it doesn't feel like a standard Navy vessel." The others immediately shifted to alert status, Nami consulting her navigational instruments while Robin moved to the stern to deploy observation equipment. Bonnie merely continued eating, though her posture subtly adjusted to combat readiness. "Nothing on conventional radar," Nami reported with growing concern. "Whatever it is, it's not giving off a normal signature." Naruto closed his eyes, focusing his concentration to refine his perception. The approaching presence felt strange. Neither fully ship nor living creature, but some hybrid of technology and biological components. "It's underwater," he determined after a moment. "Moving at approximately 3 times our maximum speed. We'll intercept T in roughly 20 minutes at current velocities." Robin's expression tightened as she lowered her specialized binoculars. "Marine Scientific Division," she stated with unusual tension in her voice. "They've deployed a hunter-seeker." "What's a hunter-seeker?" Naruto asked, noting the sudden gravity that had fallen over his companions. "Vegapunk's final creation before his death," Nami explained grimly. "Semi-autonomous pursuit vessels combining biological components from Sea Kings with advanced technology. They're designed specifically to track and capture individuals with particular energy signatures. Like scattered fragments of the Pirate King's power," Bonnie concluded, finally setting aside her meal. "Are unusual dimensional travelers. Can we outrun it?" Naruto asked, though he already suspected the answer. Nami shook her head. "Not in this vessel, not even with favorable winds and currents." "Then we fight," he decided simply. Robin's laugh held little humor. "Hunter-seekers are virtually indestructible by conventional means. Their outer hulls are composed of modified sea prism stone mixed with atom wood fibers, impervious to most devil fruit powers and physical attacks." "Good thing I don't rely on devil fruits then," Naruto replied with quiet confidence. "And I've faced indestructible enemies before." He moved to the center of the deck, assuming a meditative posture. As he began gathering natural energy to supplement his chakra. The familiar sensation of Sage Mode activation was now accompanied by threads of the red-gold energy that had become increasingly integrated with his own power, the scattered fragments of the Pirate King's abilities responding to his call. "What are you planning?" Robin asked, observing the visible changes as orange pigmentation formed around his eyes and luminous patterns flickered across his skin. "To introduce myself properly," Naruto answered with a slight smile. "If this thing is hunting me specifically, it deserves to know exactly what it's found." As the hunter-seeker drew nearer, its presence in Naruto's expanded awareness grew more defined. A hybrid consciousness, partially artificial intelligence and partially organic instinct, driven by singular purpose. He could sense its targeting systems focusing on his unique energy signature, analyzing and adapting its approach. Its surfacing, he warned moments before the sea behind their vessel erupted. The hunter-seeker breached like a mechanical leviathan, 15 meters of streamlined technology with organic components visible beneath translucent sections of its hull. Its form resembled a massive predatory fish, though clearly artificial in its precision. Multiple sensor arrays rotated on its forward section, all pivoting to focus on Naruto with unerring accuracy. "Target acquired," announced a synthesized voice that carried easily across the water. "Anomalous energy signature confirmed. Surrender as advised. Resistance will be met with appropriate force." Naruto stood calmly, facing the technological monstrosity without visible concern. "I have a counter-proposal," he called back. "Return to your commanders and inform them that Uzumaki Naruto declines their invitation. I mean no harm to this world, but I won't be captured or controlled." The hunter-seeker's response was to deploy weapon systems, panels sliding open along its flanks to reveal special IZED harpoon launchers and what appeared to be energy-based cannons. "Final warning," the synthetic voice intoned. "Surrender or face neutralization." Naruto sighed, genuinely disappointed though not surprised. "Always the hard way," he murmured before addressing his companions. "Secure yourselves. This might get rough." As the women took protective positions, Naruto channeled his hybrid energy to a technique he'd been developing during their research sessions, a modification of his Rasenshuriken that incorporated aspects of Conqueror's Haki. Wind chakra spiraled in his palm, forming the familiar shuriken shape, but now interwoven with threads of red-gold energy that altered its fundamental properties. "Haki release. Imperial Rasenshuriken," he announced calmly. The hunter-seeker fired, multiple harpoons connected to high-tensile cables launching simultaneously toward their vessel. Before they could reach their target, Naruto released his technique. The modified Rasenshuriken cut through the air with impossible speed, intercepting the harpoons mid-flight before continuing toward the hunter-seeker itself. Upon impact, rather than exploding with its usual destructive force, the Tekken IQ expanded into a spherical field of energy that encapsulated the entire mechanical beast. Within this containment field, something unprecedented occurred. The hunter-seeker's movements slowed, then stopped entirely, as if time itself had been selectively paused. Its organic components remained functioning, gills still flexing, biological sensors still active, but its technological systems appeared completely suspended. "What did you just do?" Bonnie demanded, staring at the frozen pursuit vessel with undisguised shock. "Selective temporal manipulation," Robin answered before Naruto could. Our academic mind quickly analyzing the observed effect. "He's somehow isolated the machine's technological components in a localized field of altered time flow." Naruto nodded, maintaining his focus as sweat beaded on his brow. "It's temporary," he explained through gritted teeth, "and takes a massive amount of energy to sustain. Nami, how quickly can you get us out of its sensor range?" The navigator was already in motion, adjusting sails and rudder with practiced efficiency. "With the wind shifting east and the current in our favor, 15 minutes to the magnetic disruption zone I've been tracking. That should confuse its tracking systems long enough for us to create significant distance. I can hold it for 10, Naruto estimated, the strain of maintaining the technique becoming visible in his posture. After that, it will resume function with only minor systems damage. Then we have 10 minutes to disappear, Nami concluded, her hands moving with increased urgency across the vessel's controls. Robin joined her at the navigation station, consulting charts and atmospheric readings. "There's a thermal vent 3 miles southeast. If we can reach it, the temperature differential would create a convection current we could ride to increase our speed." As his companions worked to maximize their escape opportunity, Naruto maintained his focus on the temporal field containing the hunter-seeker. Through his connection to the voice of all things, he could sense the machine's hybrid consciousness, confused, disoriented, but still fixated on its programmed objective. "I don't want to destroy you he communicated silently to the organic components. "You're as much a victim of control as anyone. To his surprise, he received a response, not in words, but in fragmentary impressions. The biological elements incorporated into the Hunter-Seeker retained some vestige of their original Sea King awareness, trapped within technological constraints but not entirely subsumed. Freedom. Remember, before metal. Naruto's eyes widened as understanding dawned. The organic components weren't merely decorative or functional additions, they were harvested from living creatures, aided against their nature into these pursuit machines. A righteous anger kindled within him, reminiscent of how he'd felt upon learning the truth of the tailed beast's enslavement. Without conscious decision, he altered the nature of his technique, sending a different kind of energy into the containment field, not to restrain, but to liberate. "What are you doing?" Robin called, noticing the change in his chakra flow. "We need to maintain containment for at least 5 more minutes." "Freeing something that should never have been imprisoned," Naruto replied, his voice resonating with conviction. "Trust me." The modified energy penetrated the Hunter-Seeker's systems, targeting the interfaces between biological and technological components. Rather than damaging these connections, Naruto's Ra reinforced the natural consciousness of the organic elements, amplifying their suppressed awareness. Within the vessel, a battle for control ensued, programmed directives clashing with awakened will. As the Sea King remnants began to reassert their natural instincts, the Hunter-Seeker's hull shuddered, lights flickering as internal systems engaged in electronic warfare. "It's fighting itself," Bonnie observed with fascination. "He's awakened the consciousness of its biological components," Robin realized, understanding dawning. "He's giving them a choice." The containment field dissipated as Naruto exhausted the last of his enhanced chakra reserves, dropping to one knee on the deck as the strain caught up with him. The Hunter-Seeker remained motionless for several seconds, internal lights cycling through irregular patterns before stabilizing in an entirely new configuration, pulsing blue rather than the harsh red of its pursuit mode. Slowly, deliberately, the mechanical leviathan turned away from their vessel, orienting itself toward the open sea. "Target parameters reassessed," announced a synthetic voice, now modulated differently, harmonics suggesting multiple voices speaking in unison rather than a single artificial intelligence. "Mission priority overridden by primary consciousness." With that cryptic declaration, the Hunter-Seeker submerged, disappearing beneath the waves with remarkable speed. "Did you just recruit a marine pursuit vessel?" Nami asked incredulously as she helped Naruto to his feet. "Not exactly," he replied, accepting her support gratefully. Ust reminded the beings inside that machinery that they were once free. The choice was theirs. Robin shook her head in quiet amazement. "Luffy turned enemies into allies through sheer force of personality. You apparently do it through spiritual liberation. I'm beginning to understand why the Scattered Crown chose you." Bonnie approached with uncharacteristic solemnity, offering Naruto a waterskin. "That kind of ability, freeing consciousness from technological control, do you understand what it could mean for countless victims of scientific experimentation throughout the Grand Line?" Naruto accepted the water, considering her question seriously. "In my world, I learned to connect with the tailed beasts, beings everyone considered mindless monsters, by recognizing their personhood. It seems that ability has transferred here, adapted to this world's context." Another aspect of the voice of all things, Robin noted. The ability to communicate with and influence entities beyond human comprehension. "It has limits," Naruto cautioned, not wanting to create false expectations. "I could only reach those components because they retained enough of their original consciousness to respond. Fully artificial systems wouldn't be susceptible." Nami had returned to the helm, adjusting their course now that immediate pursuit had been avoided. "We should still reach the thermal vent. The Hunter-Seeker might have been turned, but that doesn't mean others won't follow." "Agreed," Robin concurred, "and we should assume the unit transmitted data about our position and heading before its conversion." As they resumed their journey, Naruto took time to recover his strength, meditating below deck to restore his depleted chakra reserves. The encounter with the Hunter-Seeker had revealed new aspects of his evolving abilities, and new horrors about this world's scientific exploitation of living beings. By nightfall, they had successfully navigated through the thermal vent's convection current, gaining significant distance and obscuring their trail through the resulting atmospheric disturbances. Watersphere Island remained approximately 24 hours away at their current speed, assuming favorable conditions continued. Robin joined Naruto on deck for the evening watch, bringing tea and what passed for dinner among their dwindling supplies. They sat in comfortable silence for some time, observing the star patterns so different from those of his home dimension. "You remind me of him sometimes," Robin said finally, her voice soft enough that the others, resting below deck, wouldn't hear. "Not in personality. You're far more measured than Luffy ever was, but in your fundamental nature. The instinctive recognition of others' humanity, regardless of form or circumstance." Naruto accepted the observation thoughtfully. "From what you've all told me about him, I think we shared similar experiences growing up. Being seen as something dangerous rather than someone valuable shapes how you view others." Robin nodded, understanding in her eyes. The ability to see worth where others see only threat is rare. "It changes worlds." She paused, then added more hesitantly, "It saved my life, when I'd given up on being saved." The admission clearly cost her something, this woman who guarded her vulnerabilities with academic precision and careful distance. "The Straw Hats became your family," Naruto observed gently. "Yes, a single word carrying decades of history. The first real family I'd known since Ohara burned. Losing them." She didn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to. Naruto understood loss intimately, had faced it repeatedly throughout his life, from his parents to Jiraiya to comrades fallen in war. "But you didn't stop," he noted. "You continued the work, carried on their will." Robin's smile held both sadness and determination. "The archaeologist's curse. We persevere, preserving truth through ages of darkness, because someone must." She glanced toward him, something softening in her analytical gaze. "Though I admit, your arrival has rekindled something I thought extinguished. Hope, perhaps." The admission hung between them, neither fully personal nor entirely academic. A careful extension of trust from someone who had learned the cost of trust betrayed. "Where I come from," Naruto replied after a thoughtful pause, "we have a concept called the will of fire. It's the belief that love is the key to peace, that by loving, protecting, and believing in each other, we create a strength greater than any individual power." Robin considered this. "Not you. And like the inherited will that flows through our history, the belief that even when individuals fall, their dreams and convictions continue through those who carry their memory." "Exactly," Naruto agreed. "Maybe that's another connection between our worlds, different words for the same fundamental truth." Their philosophical discussion was interrupted by Naruto's heightened senses detecting a change in the atmosphere, a subtle shift in pressure that preceded weather alterations. "Storm approaching," he noted, gazing toward the western horizon where clouds were beginning to gather despite the clear starry sky above them. Robin followed his gaze. "Unusual for this season in these waters. Natural or Navy interference?" "Natural, I think," Naruto replied, extending his perception. "But powerful. We should alert Nami." The navigator, once informed, emerged to assess the developing weather system with professional scrutiny. After consulting her instruments and making complex calculations, she delivered her assessment. Category 3 cyclonic formation developing approximately 60 nautical miles west. Current trajectory will intersect our route in approximately 6 hours. Her expression was calculating rather than concerned. "We have two options. Attempt to outrun it southward, adding approximately 14 hours to our journey, or navigate through its northern quadrant, which would cetually accelerate our approach to Watersphere." "Through the storm?" Bonnie questioned incredulously. "In this tiny boat?" Nami's confident smile was answer enough. "I've navigated worse in smaller vessels. With Naruto's sensory abilities providing additional warning for rogue waves and wind shifts, we can not only survive it but use it to our advantage." "The Navy would expect us to avoid the storm," Robin noted strategically. "Threading through it would further confuse pursuit." The decision made, they spent the next hours securing equipment, reinforcing sails, and preparing for the coming tempest. Naruto created shadow clones to assist with the more dangerous aspects of storm preparation, impressing even the experienced sailors with his clone's ability to work effectively in perfect coordination. When the storm finally engulfed them, it proved both as dangerous and as useful as Nami had predicted. Under her masterful guidance, they navigated the churning seas and howling winds with precision that bordered on supernatural. Naruto's enhanced senses provided crucial seconds of warning before particularly dangerous wave formations or wind shifts, while Robin used her multiple limbs to secure lines that would have required 3 normal sailors. Even Bonnie proved unexpectedly useful, shifting her age and mass as needed, becoming lighter when deck weight needed to be reduced, then heavier and stronger when physical force was required to manage sails against gale force winds. By dawn, they had successfully traversed the storm's northern quadrant, emerging into calm seas with their vessel remarkably intact and their position significantly advanced toward Watersphere Island. "We should reach the outer marker buoys by mid-afternoon," Nami announced, consulting her log pose with satisfaction. "Perfect timing for evening customs processing. The harbor master is more likely to expedite entry procedures for vessels arriving before the dinner hour." "You've visited frequently," Robin observed. Nami nodded. "The Hyuga are excellent clients for cartographic services. Their trading routes require the most precise navigational charts, and they pay premium rates for quality work." As predicted, the distinctive silhouette of Watersphere Island appeared on the horizon shortly after midday, a remarkable geological formation where a perfect sphere of rock approximately 1 mile in diameter sat balanced atop a narrow stone column rising from the sea. The effect was that of a massive globe mounted on a pedestal, with the island's structures built both on top of the sphere and carved into its sides. "Incredible," Naruto murmured, taking in the architectural achievement. "It looks completely natural, but that's impossible. Ancient technology from the Void Century," Robin explained, professional interest evident in her voice. "The island was originally constructed as an astronomical observation platform. The Hyuga repurposed it into their regional headquarters approximately 300 years ago." As they approached the island's harbor, a crescent-shaped marina extending from the base of the stone column, Naruto observed the distinctive architecture that characterized Hyuga holdings. Buildings of pale stone with circular windows and gently curved roofs lined the waterfront, while a massive spiral staircase wound around the central column, leading to the spherical plateau above. "Remember our cover story," Nami reminded them as they prepared to dock. "We're independent researchers with valuable historical artifacts seeking exclusive trading rights with the Hyuga Consortium. Naruto is our security consultant specializing in artifact authentication." Harbor officials greeted their arrival with the efficient courtesy typical of major trading ports. Documents were examined, declarations recorded, and modest entry fees collected without undue scrutiny. Nami handled the interactions with practiced ease, her natural charm supplemented by obvious familiarity with proper protocols. "Temporary visitor permits approved for 72 hours, the harbor master announced, applying official seals to their documentation. "Please note that all trading proposals must be registered with the Commerce Division before formal negotiations can commence." "Of course," Nami agreed smoothly. "We were hoping to secure an appointment with Director Hiyashi's office at his earliest convenience." The official's eyebrows rose slightly at the presumptuous request, equivalent to a street vendor asking for a meeting with a nation's finance minister, but maintained professional composure. "I'll note your interest in the Daily Dispatch. The director's staff will contact you if he wishes to pursue further discussion." With formalities concluded, they were permitted to proceed into the Port District, a bustling commercial center where merchants from across the Grand Line conducted business under the Hyuga Consortium's neutral protection. Streets radiated outward from the central column like spokes on a wheel, each dedicated to different categories of trade goods. "We need lodging first," Robin decided practically. "Somewhere secure enough for confidential discussions but not so exclusive as to draw attention." Nami led them confidently through the winding streets to a modest inn called the Navigator's Respite, a 3-story establishment catering primarily to ships' officers rather than common sailors or elite merchants. "The proprietor is a former weather woman from the Grand Line News Network," she explained as they entered. "She understands the value of discretion." After securing 2 adjoining rooms with private dining accommodations, the group convened to refine their approach. Clean clothes, hot food, and proper beds had improved everyone's outlook considerably. Even Bonnie seemed less sardonic than usual as she worked through her 3rd plate of the inn's excellent seafood stew. "So what's our actual plan for approaching the Hyuga leadership?" Naruto asked, returning the discussion to their primary objective. "I doubt the harbor master's note will result in an immediate invitation." Nami's smile held confident mischief. It won't need to. The Al Merchants Gala is tomorrow evening, a formal reception where the Hyuga leadership mingles with their most valued trading partners. My contact, their former chief accountant, can secure us invitations. Infiltrating a high-security social event, Robin mused. It has a certain nostalgic charm. Will security be an issue? Naruto questioned, thinking strategically. I can create transformed Dao clones as additional coverage if needed. The Hyuga security is primarily focused on preventing violence or theft, not peaceful conversation, Nami explained. As long as we appear to be legitimate business representatives, we should be able to approach Director Hiyashi directly during the reception. And if he refuses to speak with us? Bonnie asked practically. Then we move to Plan B, Nami replied without elaborating further. The remainder of the day was spent in careful preparation, obtaining appropriate formal attire, gathering intelligence about current Hyuga trading priorities, and establishing backup rendezvous points should they become separated. Robin remained in their rooms to analyze the latest data from the poneglyph fragment, while Bonnie used her age manipulation to scout the island's security arrangements in various disguises. Naruto accompanied Nami to meet her contact, a thin, nervous man named Mizuhara who operated a small financial consulting firm in the commercial district. His obvious terror at seeing Nami again suggested their previous interaction had been memorable, if not entirely pleasant for him. Absolutely not, the accountant hissed after hearing their request, glancing frantically around his office as if expecting eavesdroppers. Do you have any idea what would happen to me if the Hyuga discovered I'd smuggled unauthorized guests into their premier social event? Probably nothing nearly as bad as what would happen if certain financial regulatory agencies received the documentation I still possess, Nami countered sweetly, examining her nails with exaggerated interest. Color drained from Mizuhara's face. You promised those records were destroyed. I promised they wouldn't be shared as long as our arrangement remained mutually beneficial, Nami corrected. I'm simply offering an opportunity to maintain that beneficial relationship. Naruto watched this exchange with a mixture of admiration and discomfort. Nami's negotiation tactics reminded him somewhat of Tsunade at her most intimidating, though with more finesse and less overt threat of physical violence. 4 invitations, Mizuhara capitulated finally, shoulders slumping in defeat. But they'll need to withstand scrutiny. The Hyuga use a special chakra-infused paper chakra paper. Naruto interrupted, suddenly alert. They actually call it that. The accountant blinked in surprise. Yes, it's their proprietary technology, some kind of energy-reactive material that responds to their touch. Supposedly impossible to counterfeit. Naruto and Nami exchanged significant glances. The parallels between worlds continued to multiply in unexpected ways. We'll handle the authentication concerns, Nami assured the defeated accountant. Just provide the basic invitations, and we'll take care of the rest. When they returned to the inn with the promised invitations, elegant cards printed on distinctive pale paper with subtle fiber patterns, Robin examined them with academic interest. Fascinating, she murmured, holding one to the light. The material contains microscopic energy conductors, similar to sea prism stone but with inverse properties. Instead of nullifying energy, it channels and preserves it. In my world, Naruto explained, we use chakra paper for nature transformation training. It reacts differently depending on your primary elemental affinity. He took one of the invitations, channeling a small amount of chakra into the paper. Rather than splitting, burning, crumpling, dissolving, or becoming damp as expected, the paper briefly illuminated with pale blue light, revealing intricate patterns previously invisible. It's accepting your chakra as authentic, Robin observed with surprise. Another indication that your energy system is compatible with this world's fundamental forces. Can you duplicate the effect for all our invitations? Nami asked practically. Naruto nodded. Easily. It's responding to basic chakra flow, nothing specialized required. With this unexpected advantage, their preparation for the Merchants' Gala accelerated. By evening, all practical arrangements had been completed, leaving only the final coordination of their approach for the following day. As the others retired for the night, Naruto found himself restless, stepping out onto the small balcony adjoining their rooms to meditate beneath unfamiliar stars. The sensory input of the busy trading port was both fascinating and overwhelming, thousands of lives intersecting, commerce flowing, information exchanging in patterns that reflected the fundamental interconnectedness of society. Through his enhanced perception, he detected Robin joining him before she spoke, her chakra signature, or what passed for it in this world, having become familiar over their days of research. "Trouble sleeping?" she inquired, leaning against the railing beside him. "Just processing," he replied honestly. "Every day in this world brings new discoveries, new connections. It's a lot to integrate." Robin nodded, understanding. Dimensional displacement would challenge anyone's adaptive capabilities. "You've managed remarkably well. I've had good guides," Naruto acknowledged with a small smile. "All of you have been more helpful than I could have expected, considering I literally fell into your world unannounced." "Perhaps not entirely unannounced," Robin countered thoughtfully. "If my theories about the poneglyph's messages are correct, certain forces in this world have been anticipating your arrival, or someone like you, for some time." Naruto considered this. "The idea that I was specifically called here is still uncomfortable. I have responsibilities in my own world, people who depend on me. The burden of being needed in multiple places," Robin observed with quiet empathy. "I suspect you're familiar with that particular challenge." "All my life," he confirmed. "But usually I can create shadow clones to be in several places at once." A rare, genuine laugh escaped Robin, a warm sound at odds with her typically reserved demeanor. "An elegant solution not available to most of us." Their conversation drifted into comfortable silence as they observed the port's nighttime activities below, ships being loaded by lamplight, late merchants concluding deals, security patrols making their rounds with methodical precision. "What do you hope to gain from the Hyuga?" Robin asked eventually, returning to practical matters. Beyond transportation, Naruto considered the question seriously. "Information, primarily. If they're as similar to the Hyuga clan from my world as they seem, they likely possess knowledge they've kept private, historical records, perhaps, or insights into the connections between our dimensions." Robin nodded approval. "A scholar's approach. Information before action. I've learned from experience," Naruto admitted. "Rushing in without understanding has cost me and others too much in the past." The archaeologist studied him with renewed interest. "You've had good teachers." "The best," he agreed, memories of Iruka, Kakashi, Jiraiya, and countless others surfacing with bittersweet clarity. Though some lessons came harder than others. Before Robin could respond, Naruto's enhanced senses detected an anomaly, a subtle shift in the energy patterns of the port district below. He straightened, attention focusing on a group of individuals moving with too much coordination to be ordinary late-night workers. "We're being watched," he stated quietly. "Northwest quadrant, near the harbor master's office. 6 individuals with suppressed energy signatures." Robin didn't visibly react beyond a slight narrowing of her eyes. "Government agents?" "No," Naruto replied after further assessment. "Different energy pattern. More focused, disciplined. Hyuga security." Then, Robin concluded. "They're already aware of our interest in meeting their leadership. Should we be concerned?" "Not necessarily. Surveillance is standard procedure for the Hyuga when dealing with unknown entities expressing interest in high-level meetings." She turned casually, as if simply continuing their conversation while moving back toward the doorway. "Though it confirms the importance of making a positive impression tomorrow evening." They retreated inside, where Naruto relayed his observations to Nami and Bonnie. The navigator took the news in stride, adjusting their plans to account for potential surveillance, while Bonnie merely shrugged. "Expected," the age manipulator commented. "The Hyuga didn't build their trading empire by being careless with who they allow access to their leadership." The following day passed in final preparations for the evening's infiltration. Formal attire was adjusted, cover stories rehearsed, and contingency plans established. By late afternoon, they were as prepared as possible for their introduction to the Hyuga Trading Company's inner circle. The Merchants' Gala was held in the Grand Exchange, a magnificent dome structure built into the upper hemisphere of Watersphere Island's distinctive globe. Reaching it required ascending the spiral staircase that wound around the central support column. A journey of nearly half an hour that offered increasingly spectacular views of the surrounding ocean. Naruto, dressed in formal attire that echoed traditional shinobi ceremonial garb while conforming to this world's fashion standards, found himself appreciating both the engineering achievement and the symbolic statement the island's design represented: balance, elevation, and the marriage of natural formation with human ambition. "Impressive, isn't it?" Nami commented as they climbed, her own attire a sophisticated gown in sea green tones that complemented her orange hair. The Hyuga belly. Eve that conducting business literally above the common market creates perspective. Decisions made at elevation, they say, take a longer view. Similar philosophy to building hidden villages on mountainsides or within natural barriers. Naruto observed. Position reflects purpose. Robin, elegant in deep purple that enhanced her scholarly presence, nodded agreement. Architectural psychology transcends dimensions, it seems. Bonnie, who had complained bitterly about formal attire before surprisingly transforming herself into the very image of aristocratic poise in crimson and gold, merely rolled her eyes at the academic exchange. Less philosophy, more focus on not getting thrown out before we meet the leadership. As they neared the summit, the security presence increased noticeably. War. DS in distinctive pale uniforms with the Hyuga crest, a stylized eye within a circle positioned at regular intervals. Each guard possessed the characteristic pale eyes of their organization, seeming L.Y. focused on everything and nothing simultaneously. Invitation verification occurred at a final checkpoint before the Grand Exchange entrance, an ornate archway where 4 particularly alert guards examined credentials with meticulous care. When Naruto presented their invitations, the guards' eyes widened fractionally as the chakra-infused paper responded to their touch with the appropriate illumination. "Unexpected," the guard murmured. Too quietly for ordinary hearing to detect, though Naruto's enhanced senses caught it clearly. Genuine resonance patterns. After a moment's consultation with a superior, they were admitted into the Grand Exchange, a breathtaking circular space where the dome's interior had been transformed into a representation of the night sky, complete with constellations rendered in luminescent materials that shifted subtly throughout the evening. Hundreds of guests in formal attire mingled across the polished stone floor, representing trading interests from throughout the Grand Line. Servers circulated with refreshments, while musicians provided elegant accompaniment from a raised platform at the chamber's center. "Primary target identified," Robin murmured, discreetly indicating a distinguished figure on the far side of the room. Director Hiyashi Hyuga, Central Conversation Group, 11 o'clock position. Naruto observed the indicated man with interest that quickly transformed to shock. The resemblance to the Hiyashi Hyuga of his world was uncanny, the same stern countenance, long dark hair now threaded with silver, and characteristic pale eyes that seemed to perceive beyond ordinary vision. He carried himself with identical dignified authority, his traditional robes marking him as the consortium's unquestioned leader. "The resemblance is remarkable," Naruto commented quietly. "He could be the twin of the Hiyashi I know." Another confirmation of cross-dimensional parallels, Robin noted. "The question is whether his personality matches as well. In my world, Hiyashi is strict, traditional, and values strength and propriety above all else," Naruto provided. "Though he's softened somewhat in recent years. That matches his reputation here," Nami confirmed. "Though, softened, isn't a word I've ever heard associated with Director Hyuga." They circulated strategically through the gathering, establishing their presence while gradually working toward Hiyashi's position. Nami leveraged her connections with several minor trading representatives to facilitate introductions, while Robin engaged academic contacts to enhance their credibility. Bonnie, surprisingly, proved adept at aristocratic social navigation, her age-shifting ability allowing her to present as a slightly older, distinguished businesswoman who commanded automatic respect. Naruto focused on observation, both conventional and enhanced by his unique sensory abilities. The gathering's energy patterns revealed interesting dynamics, clusters of genuine alliance, undercurrents of rivalry, and the distinctive signatures of individuals with combat training attempting to appear as ordinary merchants. "Security is heavier than it appears," he noted quietly to Robin as they paused near a refreshment table. "At least 20 trained fighters dispersed throughout the crowd, plus the obvious guards." "Expected for an event of this caliber," she replied. "Though perhaps slightly more than standard protocol would suggest." Before they could explore this observation further, a ripple of subtle attention moved through the gathering as a new arrival was announced at the entrance. Vice Admiral Takeda, representing Marine Headquarters Trade Liaison Office. The naval officer who entered projected authority without ostentation, a trim, efficient-looking man in his 50s wearing a modified dress uniform that emphasized diplomatic function over military might. What caught Naruto's attention, however, was the energy signature accompanying him, a carefully controlled haki presa. NCE that belied the officer's understated appearance. That's no trade liaison, Bonnie muttered, having rejoined their group with practiced casualness. That's Takeda, the hunter, specialized pursuit division. He tracks pirates with unusual abilities. They're still following us, Nami concluded grimly. Or at least tracking our potential movements. The Vice Admiral's arrival had created a subtle but significant shift in the gathering's atmosphere. Director Hiyashi moved to greet him with formal courtesy, though Naruto's enhanced perception detected tension in the exchange, polite diplomatic friction between independent power and governmental authority. This complicates our approach, Robin observed. Direct contact with Hiyashi while the Vice Admiral is present increases risk of identification. Naruto considered their options, strategizing with the experience gained through countless complex missions. We need a distraction, he determined. Something significant enough to separate them without causing alarm. Before his companions could respond, an unexpected opportunity presented itself from an entirely different quarter. A side entrance to the Grand Exchange opened, admitting a smaller party that immediately drew attention from the assembled guests. Leading this group was a young woman whose appearance caused Naruto to momentarily lose his carefully maintained composure. Though dressed in the formal attire of this world, an elegant kimono-inspired gown in pale lavender and silver, her features were unmistakable. Hinata Hyuga, or rather, this world's version of her, the same delicate beauty. Distinctive pale eyes, and graceful poise that characterized the woman he'd known since childhood. Her long indigo black hair was arranged more elaborately than his Hinata typically wore hers. Adorned with ornate silver accessories that marked high status within the Hyuga hierarchy. That's our opportunity, Nami whispered, having noticed his reaction. Hiyashi's daughter, Hina, the consortium's chief diplomatic officer. She handles sensitive negotiations that require a more delicate touch than the director's approach. Naruto barely registered Nami's words, his attendee fixed on this alternate version of someone who had been an important presence in his life. The resemblance was beyond coincidental, another confirmation that these parallel dimensions shared fundame. NTAL connections that transcended random chance. Naruto, Robin prompted gently, noting his distraction. He collected himself with visible effort. Sorry, it's just, in my world, Hinata is. He trailed off, unsure how to summarize their complex relationship in mere words. Understanding dawned in Robin's eyes. A person of significance to you, she concluded diplomatically. Yes, he acknowledged simply. Well, she might become significant in this world too, Nami interjected practically. She's our best access point to Hiyashi now that the Vice Admiral has complicated direct approach. As they watched, Hinata fulfilled her diplomatic responsibilities with practiced grace, greeting key trading partners while gradually making her way through the gathering. Unlike her father's stern authority, she projected gentle strength, commanding respect through poise rather than power. I should approach her alone, Naruto decided. If she's anything like the Hinata I know, she'll respond better to sincerity than strategic maneuvering. His companions exchanged glances before Nami nodded agreement. We'll create separation. Engage the Vice Admiral's attention briefly to ensure he's focused elsewhere during your initial contact. With roles established, they implemented their revised approach. Bonnie, transforming subtly to present as a distinguished trade minister from a distant island, engaged Vice Admiral Takeda in conversation about shipping regulations. Simultaneously, Robin utilized her devil fruit ability to discreetly monitor security responses, while Nami positioned herself to intervene if diplomatic reinforcement became necessary. Naruto circulated casually toward Hinata's position, timing his approach to coincide with a momentary lull in her diplomatic interactions. When she stepped briefly aside to accept a refreshment, he found himself with the perfect opportunity for unobserved initial contact. Excuse me, he began politely, inclining his head in the formal gesture he'd observed other guests using. I believe you might be interested in some unusual artifacts my research team has discovered. Hinata turned, her pale eyes meeting his with the polite interest of a professional diplomat, before widening almost imperceptibly with something beyond mere curiosity. "You have unusual energy," she stated quietly, her voice holding the same gentle strength as her counterpart from his world. Though perhaps with more diplomatic polish. "Not quite like anything I've observed before." The directness of her observation caught Naruto by surprise. In his world, Hinata's Byakugan could perceive chakra pathways with extraordinary detail. Could this world's version possess a similar ability? "You can sense that?" he asked, momentarily abandoning his prepared approach. A hint of a smile touched her lips. "The Hyuga are known for seeing what others miss. Though your energy patterns are unprecedented." She studied him with growing interest. "You're not from the Grand Line originally, are you?" "That's a complicated question with an even more complicated answer," Naruto replied honestly. "One best discussed somewhat more privately than our current setting allows." Rather than the suspicion such a suggestion might normally provoke, Hinata's expression reflected thoughtful assessment. "You're the unnamed party seeking direct audience with my father," she concluded. "The one Harbor Control reported arriving yesterday." Naruto nodded, impressed with her information network. "My associates and I have discovered something of significant interest to the Hyuga TRA. Ding Company. Information about connections between worlds that could revolutionize your understanding of history and commerce alike." "Bold claims," she observed, though without dismissal. "Yet your energy signature lends credibility to possibilities others might dismiss." She glanced toward her father, currently engaged with the Vice Admiral in what appeared to be increasingly tense conversation. "This evening's official functions prevent private discussion, but perhaps we could arrange a more suitable meeting tomorrow." "That would be ideal," Naruto agreed, relief evident in his voice. The Celestial Gardens, third meditation pavilion, 1 hour after dawn, Hinata specified with quiet precision. "Come alone initially. If your information warrants broader discussion, your associates can join us subsequently." The efficiency of her response suggested someone accustomed to making independent judgments, similar to how his world's Hinata had grown into her leadership role over time. "I appreciate your willingness to listen," Naruto said sincerely. Something in his tone seemed to resonate with her, prompting a more personal response than her diplomatic persona had previously allowed. "There's something familiar about you," she admitted, studying his features with gentle intensity. "As if we've met in some other context." Before Naruto could formulate a response to this unexpected observation, their exchange was interrupted by the approach of another Hyuga, a young man whose resemblance to Neji sent another shock of recognition through Naruto's system. Hinata-sama, the Neji-like figure addressed her with formal respect. "Director Hiyashi requests your presence for the trade announcement with the Eastern Alliance representatives." "Of course, Neji-san," she acknowledged with practiced composure. To Naruto, she added, "Until tomorrow, then." As she departed with her cousin, another cross-dimensional parallel that defied coincidental explanation, Naruto rejoined his companions. At their predetermined meeting point near one of the Grand Exchange's massive support columns. "Successful contact?" Nami inquired quietly. "Better than expected," Naruto confirmed. "Private meeting, arranged for tomorrow morning at the Celestial Gardens. She wants me to come alone initially." "Suspicious," Bonnie commented immediately. "Could be a trap." "I don't think so," Naruto disagreed. "She sensed my unusual energy signature immediately, similar to how the Hyuga in my world can see chakra pathways." She seemed genuinely interested rather than threatened. "The Hyuga here are rumored to possess unique perceptual abilities," Robin noted, though the specific nature of their all-seeing eyes is closely guarded. "Either way, we've established initial contact without alerting the Vice Admiral," Nami observed with satisfaction. "We should depart separately to avoid drawing attention to our connection." They implemented this suggestion with practiced casualness, leaving the gala at different intervals and by separate exits. Naruto, departing last, maintained sensory awareness of the gathering's energy patterns as he left, noting with interest that both Hiyashi and the Vice Admiral made to take subtle notice of his exit despite being engaged in apparently absorbing conversation across the chamber. Their return to the inn was accomplished without incident, though Naruto detected the same surveillance team from the previous evening maintaining discreet observation from various positions throughout the commercial district. Once reunited in their secure rooms, the group compared observations and refined their approach for the following day's crucial meeting. The Vice Admiral's presence isn't coincidental, Robin stated with academic certainty. The timing suggests the world government has information about our movements, possibly through the Hunter-Seeker before its conversion. Which means they might know we're seeking dimensional access points, Nami concluded grimly. If they connect that objective to the Hyuga's historical knowledge, they could move to prevent any alliance between us, Bonnie finished. Possibly with force, despite the Hyuga's neutral status. Naruto considered these implications carefully. All the more reason to establish trust with Hinata quickly. If she's convinced of our legitimate intentions, she could provide protection under Hyuga diplomatic protocols. Assuming she has the authority to do so, Robin cautioned. Family resemblance doesn't guarantee parallel development of character or position. True, Naruto acknowledged, but my instincts say she's similar to the Hinata I know, someone who makes her own assessments rather than simply following protocol. The discussion continued into the night, contingency plans established for various scenarios that might unfold during the morning meeting. Eventually, they settled into uneasy rest, aware that the following day could determine the success or failure of their entire mission. Dawn arrived with unusual atmospheric clarity, the sky painted in watercolor hues as Naruto made his way toward the Celestial Gardens, an extensive botanical collection situated on the upper hemisphere of Watersphere Island. Following Hinata's directions, he located the third meditation pavilion, a graceful structure of pale wood and stone positioned to overlook both the gardens and the ocean beyond. She was already there, her formal attire from the previous evening replaced by more practical clothing that still maintained the elegant aesthetics of Hyuga design. Standing at the pavilion's edge, silhouetted against the morning light, the resemblance to his world's Hinata was so profound it momentarily stole his breath. You came alone, as requested, she observed without turning, somehow aware of his presence despite his naturally quiet approach. That suggests either confidence or trust. Both are interesting choices when dealing with strangers. Sometimes instinct provides better guidance than caution. Naruto replied, joining her at a respectful distance. Now she did turn, studying him with those characteristic pale eyes that seemed to perceive beyond ordinary vision. You speak as someone accustomed to following instincts over protocols. When the situation warrants, he confirmed. Though experience has taught me the value of both. A small smile touched her lip. Another expression so familiar it created a complex emotional resonance within him. Please, sit, she invited, gesturing to the pavilion's stone benches. And tell me who you really are, traveler between worlds. The directness of her statement startled him. You already know, I suspected from our first interaction, Hinata clarified. Your energy patterns contain harmonics impossible within our dimensional constants. Meeting you in person merely confirmed what theory suggested might exist. Naruto took the offered seat, reassessing his approach in light of her unexpected knowledge. The Hyuga have studied dimensional theory. For generations, she confirmed, her posture relaxing slightly as she joined him. Our ancestors didn't originally come from this world, or rather, not from this version of it. The Sky Island origin story contains metaphorical truth. Our founding members arrived during what history records as the Void Century, fleeing catastrophe in their original reality. The revelation aligned with patterns Naruto had begun to recognize, connections between worlds that transcended coincidence, suggesting fundamental relationships between parallel dimensions. In my world, he began carefully. The Hyuga clan is one of Konoha's oldest and most prestigious families. They possess a bloodline limit called the Byakugan, eyes that can see chakra pathways and through solid objects. Interest sharpened in Hinata's expression. Chakra pathways. Yes, that terminology aligns with our oldest texts. We call it differently now, essence channels in our technical language, but the concept appears identical. And your eyes? Naruto prompted gently. Do they have similar abilities to the Byakugan I described? Rather than answering verbally, Hinata closed her eyes briefly. When she reopened them, the pale irises had changed, veins becoming visible at her temples as her pupils defined themselves more clearly against the nearly white background. We call it Tensugen, the celestial eyes, she explained, her gaze now clearly perceiving aspects of reality beyond ordinary vision. It allows us to see energy patterns, structural compositions, and connections between things that appear separate to ordinary perception, including connections between dimensions, Naruto concluded, understanding dawning. Precisely. She relaxed the technique, her eyes returning to their normal appearance. Which is why your arrival has created such interest within our organization. You represent confirmation of theories we've maintained for centuries despite scientific skepticism. Their conversation expanded from there, each sharing relevant information with increasing openness as mutual trust established itself naturally. Naruto explained his unexpected dimensional transition, the poneglyph's reaction to his presence, and the gradual integration of this world's power systems with his native chakra. Hinata, in turn, revealed aspects of Hyuga history rarely shared with outsiders, how their ancestors had established multidimensional trading theories that had gradually been simplified to conventional commerce as the original knowledge faded, and how certain family members still trained in techniques designed to perceive beyond ordinary dimensional boundaries. The coordinates you discovered, she noted with particular interest when Naruto described the poneglyph's message about Concordia, align with locations in our oldest navigational charts, places marked as thin boundaries, where our founders theorized transition between realities might be possible. Then you believe this Concordia might actually exist? Naruto asked, hope rising. A place where I could potentially return to my world. More than that, Hinata replied, her expression growing more animate than at any point in their conversation. If the poneglyph is accurate, Concordia may be the original transition point our ancestors used, a stable dimensional nexus rather than the accidental breach that apparently brought you here. The implications were significant. Not just a possible return route for Naruto, but confirmation of historical connections between worlds that the Hyuga had theorized for generations. This explains why the world government is so interested in dimensional research, Naruto realized. If they discovered references to these transition points in historical records, they could seek to control interdimensional access, Hinata concluded grimly. Expanding their dominion beyond this world to others, including yours. The shared concern created a moment of connection between them, mutual recognition of stakes that transcended personal interests or even single-world politics. The Hyuga Trading Company has maintained neutrality in conflicts between the world government and its opponents for centuries. Hinata continued after a thoughtful pause. But interdimensional expansion by any single faction represents an existential threat to the balance we've worked to preserve. You're considering breaking that neutrality, Naruto observed, recognizing the subtle shift in her diplomatic calculation. I'm considering selective alliance with parties whose interests align with preserving multidimensional balance, she corrected with diplomatic precision, though a hint of a smile suggested appreciation for his direct assessment. Their discussion turned to practical matters, Hyuga resources that might assist their journey to the coordinates, security considerations given the Navy's interest, and the logistics of transporting Naruto's companions safely. As they finalized preliminary arrangements, Hinata's expression grew more personal than professional. There's something I've been meaning to ask, she began with uncharacteristic hesitation. In your world, you mentioned knowing me. Or rather, your world's version of me. The question held layers of meaning beyond simple curiosity. Naruto considered his response carefully, aware of the complex emotions involved in discovering one's interdimensional counterpart. Yes, he acknowledged simply. She's someone very important to me. A precious friend who has supported me through difficult times, one whose quiet strength often went unrecognized by others. Something in his tone must have conveyed deeper meaning, as Hinata's expression shifted subtly. More than a friend, perhaps. The directness of her inquiry, so unlike his world's Hinata's typical approach, reminded him of the differences that existed alongside the similarities. Our relationship is complicated by circumstances, he admitted. But she's someone I've always respected and valued. Before the conversation could continue in this more personal direction, Naruto's enhanced senses detected approaching presences, multiple individuals moving with purposeful coordination toward the gardens. Someone's coming, he warned, shifting subtly to a more defensible position. At least 8 individuals, moving with military precision. Hinata activated her Tensugen briefly, confirming his assessment. Government agents, she identified with concern. led by Vice Admiral Takeda himself. This is highly irregular. They have no authority to conduct operations within Hyuga sovereign territory. Unless they've received special dispensation from the world government's highest levels, Naruto suggested grimly. If they've connected me to dimensional research, then standard diplomatic protocols would be superseded by existential security concerns, Hinata concluded, quickly assessing options. We need to move. There's an executive transport platform near the central garden that can take us directly to the secure levels. They departed the pavilion with controlled urgency, Hinata leading them through paths clearly designed with security considerations in mind, routes that offered multiple divergence options and natural coverage from aerial observation. My father should be informed immediately, she noted as they moved. Government intrusion of this nature violates multiple treaty provisions. Will he support your decision to assist us? Naruto asked practically. A determined expression settled across Hinata's features, one remarkably similar to her counterpart's resolve when committed to a course of action. My father respects evidence and strategic advantage above all else. Once he understands the dimensional confirmation you represent, he'll recognize both the historical validation and the commercial opportunities. They had nearly reached the central garden when Naruto's senses detected a shift in their pursuers' pattern. The group had divided, with teams moving to intercept from multiple directions. They're surrounding us, he warned, mentally cataloging combat options that would neutralize the threat without causing diplomatic catastrophe. Hinata nodded acknowledgement, activating her Tensugen to assess their tactical situation. The central transport is compromised, she determined. Well, I'll need to use the maintenance access instead. This way, she led them through a concealed entrance into what appeared to be service tunnels running through Watersphere Island's interior structure. Unlike the elegant architecture above, these passages were utilitarian, carved directly into the rock and reinforced with practical materials designed for durability rather than aesthetics. These maintenance networks connect all major sections of the island, Hinata explained as they moved swiftly through the tunnels. Only Hyuga security personnel and essential maintenance staff have access codes, which means the government agents will have difficulty following directly, Naruto observed, impressed with the security design. Though they'll likely establish perimeter containment at major exits. Precisely why we won't be using a major exit, Hinata replied with a hint of satisfaction. The Hyuga maintain several executive extraction routes for emergencies, completely separate from standard security protocols. As they navigated the complex tunnel network, Naruto maintained sensory awareness of their pursuers' movements above. The government team had indeed established containment positions at primary access points, but appeared unaware of the maintenance system they were currently using. Your companions, Hinata inquired as they descended deeper into the island's infrastructure, can they be contacted securely? Robin has established encrypted communication protocols, Naruto confirmed. Once we reach a secure location, I can alert them to the situation. Hinata nodded approval. We'll proceed to the Executive Council chambers. My father will be conducting morning trade reviews there, and government agents, regardless of authority, cannot enter without explicit permission and Hyuga escort. After several more minutes of navigation through increasingly secure passages, they reached an elaborate door marked with the Hyuga crest, a stylized eye within a circle, rendered in precious metals inlaid directly into the stone. Hinata placed her palm against a recognition panel, simultaneously activating her Tensugen. Hinata Hyuga, Diplomatic Division Director, Security Protocol 739, Executive Override. The massive door receded silently, revealing a chamber that contrasted dramatically with the utilitarian tunnels they'd traversed. The Hyuga Executive Council room exemplified elegant efficiency, a circular space with a central conference table surrounded by information displays, all rendered in the pale colors and clean lines characteristic of Hyuga aesthetics. Seated at the head of the table, reviewing holographic trade projections with several advisors, was Director Hiyashi Hyuga. His expression registered momentary surprise at their unorthodox arrival before settling into careful neutrality. Daughter, he acknowledged formally. This is an unexpected interruption to scheduled proceedings. Circumstances necessitate deviation from protocol, father. Hinata responded with equal formality, though Naruto detected the underlying current of respect and affection between them, another parallel to his world's counterparts. Government agents have entered celestial gardens without authorization, pursuing diplomatic conversation with our guest. Hiyashi's pale eyes shifted to Naruto, assessing him with the same penetrating intensity his counterpart possessed. The dimensional traveler, he stated rather than asked. Harbor Control reported unusual energy signatures upon your arrival. Our security analysis suggested non-standard origins. Director Hyuga, Naruto greeted with respectful inclination of his head. I apologize for the disruption, but events have accelerated beyond our preferred timeline. Rather than immediately responding, Hiyashi activated his own Tensugen, studying Naruto with perception that clearly transcended ordinary vision. After several moments of silent analysis, he addressed his advisors without shifting his gaze. Clear the chamber. Secure communications only until further notice. The assembled Hyuga executives departed with efficient precision, leaving only Hiyashi, Hinata, and Naruto in the council room. Once the doors sealed behind them, the director's formal demeanor relaxed marginally. Dimensional transition energy, he stated with academic certainty. Precisely as our ancestral texts described. Qua, NTUM-level disruption patterns consistent with cross-reality displacement. Father has specialized in theoretical dimensional physics alongside his leadership responsibilities, Hinata explained to Naruto. His Tensugen perception is particularly attuned to energy harmonics. The world government's interest in you is now contextually logical, Hiyashi continued, deactivating his enhanced vision. Their research into dimensional boundaries has accelerated dramatically in recent years, particularly following the Ohara scholars' discoveries regarding the Void Century. Robin, Naruto clarified, she's one of my companions. Hiyashi's eyebrows rose slightly. Nico Robin travels with you. That explains the unprecedented response level. The combination of dimensional technology and accurate historical knowledge represents the world government's most significant vulnerability. The director rose, moving to a specialized console embedded in the chamber's wall. Government agents operating without authorization on Hyuga sovereign territory requires formal diplomatic response. However, precipitous action could escalate the situation unnecessarily. His fingers moved across the console with practiced precision, activating what appeared to be internal security protocols. We will secure your companions first. Where are they currently located? The navigator's respite in the commercial district, Naruto provided. Though they'll have implemented contingency protocols once they detected unusual security movement. A practical approach, Hiyashi approved, issuing commands through the console. Hyuga security will establish protective coverage without direct contact. Meanwhile, we must address your long-term objectives and how they align with Hyuga interests. What followed was a remarkably efficient strategic discussion, Hiyashi proving to be as incisive and pragmatic as his counterpart, though perhaps with greater diplomatic flexibility born from generations of commercial negotiation rather than shinobi tradition. Naruto explained their discovery of coordinates to Concordia, the poneglyph's reaction to his presence, and the gradual integration of this world's power with his native chakra. Hiyashi listened with focused attention, occasionally asking precise questions that demonstrated sophisticated understanding of dimensional theory. The coordinates align with locations in our ancestral navigation charts. The director confirmed, accessing historical records through the council room's systems. What modern maps identify as the Sea of Storms, our original texts called the Veil Between Worlds, a region where dimensional boundaries naturally thin due to unique energy convergences. Can your ships navigate there safely? Naruto asked the practical question uppermost in his concerns. Standard vessels would face significant challenges, Hiyashi acknowledged. However, the Hyuga maintains specialized ships designed for research in magnetically unstable regions. The Celestial Compass would be suitable for your requirements, a research vessel with enhanced navigation systems and defensive capabilities. Hinata, who had been monitoring security updates through a separate console, rejoined the conversation. Your companions have been located and discreetly contacted through our commercial representatives. They're being escorted to secure facilities through separate routes. Relief washed through Naruto at this news. Thank you. Their safety has been my primary concern since detecting the government agents. A leader's appropriate priority, Hiyashi observed with approval. Now, regarding formal arrangements for Hyuga assistance in your dimensional research expedition. The conversation shifted to diplomatic and commercial terms, Hiyashi proving to be every bit the meticulous negotiator his reputation suggested, while still demonstrating genuine interest in the historical and scientific implications of Naruto's dimensional crossing. By mid-morning, they had established preliminary agreements. The Hyuga would provide transportation, supplies, and diplomatic cover for their expedition to Concordia, in exchange for exclusive rights to any dimensional T-Rancid technology developed and priority access to cross-dimensional trading opportunities should stable connections be established. A mutually beneficial arrangement, Hiyashi concluded with satisfaction. The celestial compass can be prepared for departure within 48 hours. Until then, you and your companions will remain in Hyuga protective custody, for security rather than restriction. And the government agents currently on your island, Naruto inquired, will be managed through appropriate diplomatic channels, Hiyashi assured him. The vice admiral overstepped his authority signif. I can't leave by operating without prior notification on neutral territory. This provides useful leverage in broader negotiations with the world government. A subtle alert sounded from the communications system, drawing Hinata's attention. Security reports your companions have arrived safely at the northern residential complex. They're awaiting your arrival. I'll escort our guest personally, she offered. Glancing toward her father for approval, Hiyashi considered the request briefly before nodding. Appropriate. Dimensional theory has been your secondary specialization. The practical application will provide valuable insight for your ongoing research. The formal phrasing barely disguised what Naruto recognized as paternal indulgence, another parallel to how his world's Hiyashi had gradually acknowledged his daughter's capabilities and interests. As they prepared to depart through executive security channels, Hiyashi addressed Naruto directly once more. Mr. Uzumaki, one final observation. The energy pattern your system exhibits while adapting to our dimensional constants, it resembles descriptions in our oldest texts regarding the spiral path between worlds. I believe your arrival may represent more than coincidental dimensional displacement. Others have suggested similar conclusions, Naruto acknowledged. That some force in this world specifically called to me across dimensions. Forces that transcend individual worlds often operate according to patterns beyond our immediate comprehension, Hiyashi stated with philosophical acceptance. The Hyuga have learned to recognize such patterns without necessarily understanding their complete significance. With that cryptic observation, he returned to his console, leaving Hinata to guide Naruto through the executive security network to reunite with his companions. As they traversed the elaborate internal transit system connecting major Hyuga facilities, their conversation turned more personal. Your father is very similar to his counterpart in my world, Naruto observed, though perhaps with more diplomatic flexibility. Hinata smiled slightly. Generations of commercial negotiation tend to soften even the most rigid personality traits. Though he maintains traditional expectations in many respects, including for his daughter, Naruto asked, recalling the complex expectations his world's Hiyashi had placed on Hinata. Naturally, she confirmed with a hint of rueful acknowledgement. Though I've found my own path within those expectations rather than in opposition to them. The diplomatic division allows me to serve both Hyuga interests and my personal values simultaneously. The observation revealed significant character development parallels despite their different worlds, both Hinata's finding ways to hun our family legacy while establishing individual identity and purpose. In your world, she continued with careful curiosity, what path did your Hinata choose? She became a strong kunoichi, a female ninja, who specialized in gentle but effective techniques, Naruto replied, memories surfacing with bittersweet clarity. She fought to protect her family and village while gradually reforming traditions that needed changing. Her quiet strength often surprised people who underestimated her. Something in his tone must have conveyed deeper personal significance, as Hinata studied him with perceptive attention. She's important to you, she observed softly. Very, Naruto acknowledged simply. Their arrival at the northern residential complex prevented further personal conversation as they were ordered to a secure meeting room where Nami, Robin, and Bonnie awaited. The reunion was marked by quick exchange of information, his companions relating their extraction by Hyuga commercial agents who approached them with recognition codes Robin had established during previous scholarly exchanges with the trading company. The Hyuga have agreed to provide transportation to Concordia, Naruto informed them. Summarizing his negotiations with director Hiyashi. Their ship is specifically designed for the magnetic anomalies of the Sea of Storms, with enhanced navigation systems that should allow us to reach the exact coordinates. In exchange for what? Bonnie asked pragmatically, always suspicious of seemingly generous offers. Exclusive rights to any dimensional transit technology developed, and priority access to cross-dimensional trading opportunities if stable connections are established, Naruto explained. Seems fair considering the resources they're committing and the diplomatic protection they're extending. More than fair, Robin agreed with scholarly assessment. The Hyuga are taking significant political risk by openly opposing world government interests in this matter. Air historical neutrality has been their primary protection against interference. Hinata, who had remained respectfully silent during their reunion, now addressed the group directly. The Hyuga Trading Company has maintained neutrality by balancing relationships with all major factions. However, interdimensional expansion by any single power represents an existential threat to that balance. Our interests align with preserving multidimensional equilibrium. Pragmatic self-interest, Nami observed with approval. The best foundation for reliable alliance. Precisely, Hinata acknowledged with a diplomatic smile. Now, regarding your immediate needs and preparation for departure. The remainder of the day was spent in efficient preparation, secure quarters established within the Hyuga residential complex. Equipment and supplies requisitioned for their journey, and detailed briefings on the Celestial Compass's capabilities and operational protocols. Throughout these preparations, Naruto found himself increasingly aware of Hinata's presence, the complex emotional resonance created by her simultaneous familiarity and difference from the woman he'd known in his world. Her competence as diplomatic director was evident in every interaction, yet glimpses of the same essential kindness and perception that characterized his world's Hinata emerged in quiet moments. By evening, when formal preparations concluded and the group settled into their assigned quarters for rest before the following day's continued arrangements, Naruto found himself restless with unprocessed thoughts. Following what had become habit, he sought quiet meditation space, in this case, a small garden terrace adjoining the residential complex. The night air carried the complex scents of Watersphere Island, botanical gardens, ocean breezes, and the subtle mechanical undercurrents of the trading port below. Stars unfamiliar to his home dimension spread across the sky, reinforcing his displacement while simultaneously offering strange comfort in their eternal constancy across realities. Trouble sleeping again, came a gentle voice from behind him. He turned to find Hinata approaching, her formal diplomatic attire replaced by simpler clothing that reinforced her resemblance to his world's counterpart. Just processing, he replied honestly. Each day brings new revelations about connections between our worlds. It's a lot to integrate. She joined him at the terrace railing, maintaining respectful distance while still establishing conversational intimacy. I've been studying our ancestral texts since our meeting this morning, she offered. The parallels between our worlds extend beyond coincidental similarities. The original Hyuga scholars theorized what they called resonance patterns between dimensions, core elements that remain consistent despite divergent development paths. People who find each other across different realities. Naruto translated the academic concept into emotional terms. Precisely. Her gaze remained on the distant horizon rather than meeting his directly, another mannerism so familiar it created complex emotional resonance. They believed certain souls maintained connections regardless of dimensional boundaries. That some relationships transcended the separation of worlds. The observation hung between them, laden with implications neither fully articulated. In your world, Hinata continued after a comfortable silence, did your Hinata ever tell you how she felt about you? The directness of the question, so unlike his world's Hinata's typical approach, reminded him again of the differences that existed alongside similarities. Yes, he acknowledged quietly. During a battle where I nearly died, she intervened, risked everything to protect me, and told me she loved me. And your response? She asked, still not looking at him directly. Naruto considered his answer carefully, aware of the complex emotions involved. Life got complicated, he admitted. War, responsibilities, trying to build peace. We never really had the conversation we should have had. Then more time passed, and it became harder to find the right moment. Now she did turn to face him. Her expression gentle but direct. That sounds like regret. It is, he acknowledged simply. One of several I carry. Hinata studied him with the perceptive insight characteristic of both her counterparts. You're afraid of creating new regrets here, connections that will be severed when you return to your world. The observation struck uncomfortably close to concerns he'd been deliberately avoiding examining. I have responsibilities there, he replied, the answer feeling insufficient even as he spoke it. People who depend on me. As do I here, Hinata noted pragmatically. Yet dimensional theory suggests possibilities beyond simple binary choices. If Concordia exists as our ancestors described, a stable nexus between worlds, perhaps connections once established need not be permanently severed. The possibility hung between them, tantalizing, hopeful, and profoundly complicated. I should let you rest, Hinata said finally, professional composure returning. Tomorrow brings significant preparations for our expedition. Naruto questioned, noting the pronoun choice. A small smile touched her lips. Did you think I would allow others to lead the first confirmed interdimensional expedition in Hyuga history? Father has approved my request to represent our interests personally on this journey. The news created an unexpected surge of both anticipation and concern within him. The journey to Concordia could be dangerous. The Navy will certainly attempt to intercept us. All meaningful discoveries involve risk, Hinata replied with quiet determination. And I've been trained in more than diplomatic negotiation, despite appearances. With that intriguing statement, she bid him good night, leaving Naruto to contemplate the increasingly complex connections forming in this world, and the possibilities they represented for both his mission and his personal journey. As he finally sought rest, the poneglyph's message echoed in his mind with new significance. The scattered crown seeks the spiral child. The one who bridges worlds shall inherit the dawn. Perhaps the bridging of worlds had meanings beyond the merely physical or dimensional. Perhaps connections between souls, across time, space, and reality itself, represented another form of bridge altogether. Morning would bring practical concerns and tactical preparations. But for now, beneath stars unfamiliar yet constant, Naruto allowed himself to consider possibilities that transcended the boundaries between worlds. Chapter 2 End.